All right, if everyone can find their seats, I'd like to welcome everybody as we call to order the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, City of Lake City, 7 February 2023. At this time, I ask that all rise for the invocation, remain rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Nelson, the honors.
Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for our city. Bless our deliberations this day, so that we may wisely serve our citizens. Let us make sound recommendations based on sound judgment. We ask all these things in your name, Lord, all these blessings. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Mr. Angelo, roll call of members.
Ms. McCullough? Here. Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Cooper?
Present.
Mr. McMahon?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
And Mr. Light.
Present. Your quorum is present. Very nice. Meeting minutes from our January 4th, 2023 meeting of Planning and Zoning were distributed electronically last week. I trust that all board members had ample opportunity to review those meeting minutes. At this time, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes as submitted by Mr. Angelo?
No.
At this time, hearing none, is there a motion for their adoption?
Move to approve.
Second. Man, Nelson. Hand vote, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous vote, we have meeting minutes. Very nice. Seeing no old business, we move to the order of new business. SPR 23-05, petition submitted by Kyle Craigle, acting as agent for Target Corporation for site plan review for Target Distribution Tractor Trailer Parking Lot Extension in the Industrial Zoning District located on parcel 04974, which is regulated by the Land Development Regulations, section 4.17. Mr. Angelo?
All right, this is for a site plan review for Target Distribution. So they are proposing to extend some of their parking for internal use only for their tractors that they use for moving the trailers around. They need some additional parking for that, so that's what this is proposed to do. It is a permitted use in the industrial area under LDR section 4.16.2.1. According to the staff review, the only comment really is that they still need to finish up their permit with the Swanee River Water Management before any permits can be issued for the project.
All right, at this time, do we have someone to speak on behalf of the proponent, Mr. Craigle? Are you Mr. Craigle?
Good evening. My name is actually Mark Shelton. I work with Kyle Craigle. He's in our San Diego office. I'm in Jacksonville.
That's a number of time zones away.
It is. And we submitted a agent authorization with my name today.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening, to the best of your knowledge and ability, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Your name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo, please.
Yes, sir. It's Mark Shelton, MarkShelton. And I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. My address is 12740 Grand Bay Parkway, Suite 2350, Jacksonville, Florida, 32258.
All right, please let us know what you would like to accomplish this evening.
Well, As you've heard, we're here today to ask for your approval of the site plan, parking lot internal expansion. It's actually being used now. They would like to improve it with pavement for their tractors. If this is solely internal to the existing Target Distribution Center, it's solely for Target Distribution. It is where they'll hold their tractors, 40 different stalls, before they're used with the actual trailer to go off-site. Happy to stand by with any questions.
All right, and can you please reiterate the concerns from Water Management District?
Yes, they're in the process of getting their permit approved through Swanee River Water Management. Once that's approved, then the permit can be commenced on the project.
All right, questions for the proponent from members of the board?
So besides paving, are there any other resources that will be required? Without lighting, any additional water, any additional gas, nothing else?
Nothing else, no sir. Very easy request, yes sir.
Any other questions from members of the board? All right, seeing none at this time, you may be seated. Are there any other members of the public gathered here that would care to speak either for or against petition SPR 23-05 as submitted by agent of owner? Seeing none at this time, do we have a motion to close public comment on SPR 23-05?
Motion to close public comment.
Second. Motion and second was Mr. Carter down here. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Discussion amongst members of the board and city staff. Doesn't give you any heartburn if there was a motion to approve contingent upon receipt of documentation from constituted state authorities, right? Very nice. Anything else from members of the board? Seeing none, in that case, do we have a motion to either approve or disapprove petition SPR 23-05 contingent upon receipt of required documentation from Swanee River Water Management District?
Motion approved.
Second. Motion to approve, second. Mr. Angelo, would you please call the roll of the members?
Yes. Ms. McCollum?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. McMahon?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
And Mr. Lighty?
Yay. There we go. We have it unanimous. Very nice, congratulations. You're not also flying back to San Diego, are you?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm on the road right now.
All right, this time we're gonna move forward, seeing that we have a similar situation as we did last month with a combined CPA petition and a Z petition for the same exact listed parcels. If there are no objections from members of the board, we will simultaneously consider petition CPA 23-01 and Z 23-01. Any objections to be voiced by the board?
No.
All right, seeing none. This time, petition CPA 23-01 and petition Z 23-01 submitted by Jerry Dedenbach, AICP, acting as agent for Terry Hunter, George Hunter, John Hunter, and Michael Petitco, owners, to amend future land use of land development regulations by changing future land use from Columbia County Residential Low, Columbia County Commercial, and City of Lake City Commercial to residential moderate on properties described as follows: parcels 08037, 0803705, 0803706, 0811098, 0110-99, and 08110-100. Additionally, this will be to amend the zoning atlas, in addition to the future land use, for similar properties as described previously. We have someone here to, or I'm sorry, Mr. Angelo, would you care to come forward and describe this petition to us?
All right, this petition is CPA 2301 and Z 2301. It is for a comprehensive plan amendment to change the comprehensive plan from the current, which it has some commercial and general, some commercial intensive, and some residential future land use on it, to all residential moderate, which would allow 4 dwelling units per acre. The zoning will change it from commercial intensive, commercial general, and to residential, what they call it, planned residential development zoning, which will allow for up to around 325 units up to 375 units. Currently, with the current zoning of RSF2, there would be a potential for 4 dwelling units per acre under that, which would be up to 400 units under current zoning. And then with the new zoning, it would be at 375. Also have a letter from the city concerning the utilities. I do have this letter back here in the back for everyone if they want to read over it. Any questions?
Hold on, I'm trying to get my packet back up here. Correct me if I'm wrong, ordinarily, we wouldn't see something so comprehensive with so many outside reports and studies until we're ready to move into a site plan review phase of a project. This is
a PRD, planned residential development, so it goes through a little bit different tracking process than what a normal rezoning would do. So you have the rezoning for the comprehensive plan or the future land use amendment for that part. Then that is gonna go to the state of Florida because it's a large scale. We'll sit over with state of Florida for about 30 days, get reviewed by them, then come back, and then track with the PRD and the planned residential development. So the planned residential development has to have a tentative kind of, almost like a site plan, as dialed in as possible for how many units they're gonna have, where the ingress egresses are gonna be, kind of have that ironed out a little bit more before moving on to the next step. Then it'll go through the city council for approval, and then from there, they have to submit a final plan, and that with all the ins and outs, everything of the whole development. So this is kind of like a real conceptual plan, but at the same time, it's a little more in-depth than what a normal rezoning would be.
Okay, so that's why this series of packages that went out was so fundamentally different from what we saw last month. It was something that was not a PRD, it was a simple zoning and planning atlas change.
Correct.
All right, anything else we should know for?
Quick question, a minute ago you said that the current zoning allowed for 400 and the new possible zoning.
Yeah, so RSF2 has to have 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit, which would allow, you could get 4 of those per acre. So that would put you a little under 400 units. But we're probably about almost the same amount of units as what the 375 would on the other. So the future land use of 4 dwelling units, residential moderate, would match up with what is currently zoned at RSF2. The PRD is just a different one altogether, just because of the type of development it is. They're kind of planning everything all together.
Thank you.
All right, and this last minute submission from City of Lake City will be included as an amendment to the digital.
I do have
packets.
copies at the back of the room, but it also will be added online.
Can I also clarify something? The current zoning is residential and commercial. This would be going to
Strictly residential, correct. Yeah, right now it has 3 different zonings on it, so this would clean up the zoning on that property to all residential. So it would take away the commercial application of the use of building.
All right. So I have a sneaking suspicion, I know why most of y'all are here this evening.
do tell.
That being said, I assume many of you were here last month when we discussed a similar project on a similar area of town. I personally don't like using that clock when I chair these meetings. I'm going to give everyone a fair opportunity to talk during public comment, be responsible, and be respectful of other folk in here. If someone has already mentioned your comment 2 or 3 times, you may not need to come forward to the podium. When you come in, you'll get sworn in, you'll make your comment. We're not going to be interrogating the proponent on this. Please address any public comments to us here as the board. If necessary, we will we'll solicit for clarification from the level of the board to the proponent. I'm going to start over here downstage to my right, and we're going to move forward. First, we're going to let the proponent speak and swear him in, and we're going to move in echelon. All right, do we have a Mr. Jerry here?
Thank you, sir.
And how do I properly pronounce that last name?
You were very close. D. Den Bach. 3 syllables.
Okay, very nice.
Tis a bit German. Yes, thank you very much.
Please raise your right hand.
Absolutely.
Swear the testimony that you're about to give this evening to the best of your knowledge is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, sir.
Very nice. Name with spelling plus legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
Certainly. My name with spelling plus address is Jerry, Gerry, Dedenbach, Diedenbach. Address 11801 Research Drive, Alachua, Florida 32615. I talk as fast as that pencil moves.
All good, Robert?
Yep.
Very nice.
And if I could have your IT staff put up, I have a PowerPoint presentation for each that will fully explain the applications to you in
All right.
detail.
Which one would you prefer first?
The one that says CPA, which is the land use amendment. That's the one, right there, sir, thank you. Okay, I don't know how I can control the clicker best, or if I just say next click, please, but.
Before we begin, just to satisfy any legal requirements, there's nothing in this presentation that was not already submitted through channels and as part of the public record as part of this planning packet, right?
That's correct. The materials that are contained in here are also contained in the land use amendment and the rezoning amendment. We also have sent in a PDF version of these presentations, so they all are in the public record, sir.
Okay, very nice, thank you.
Of course. Okay, and so I'll just ask for a click and then,
Yeah.
Perfectly wonderful, thank you. All right, my name is Jerry Diedenbach. I'm the Executive Vice President of CHW Professional Consultants. I'm a professional land use planner. I've been practicing land use for 32 years. I had my first 12 years with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and then 20 years ago I went into private practice. I am an owner of a multidisciplinary firm that provides survey, land planning, civil engineering, landscape architecture, traffic engineering, construction engineering inspection services, and ecological services. And we have been retained by Garden Street Communities to effectuate an annexation in the city of Lake City of about 100 acres of land that was formerly in Columbia County, and then process the necessary large-scale land use amendment to put Lake City land use upon the property now that it is in the municipality of Lake City, and remove the Columbia County land use. So the requests that are before you tonight is a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, and we are requesting that you recommend that the City Commission transmit this to the State of Florida's Department of Economic Opportunity for their consideration. They're publishing of what is called the Objections, Recommendations, and Comment, or FORC report, which comes back to the city. We are requesting to go from Columbia County Residential Low, Columbia County Commercial, and Lake City Commercial to Lake City's Residential Moderate Density, which is a low-density urban residential land use. It's clearing up 3 different classifications into one. And our intent is to take newly annexed land in the city of Lake City and apply them with a residential classification so we can unify the entitlements for a singular residential subdivision neighborhood. The opportunities that we see is this will greatly increase the tax base in the city of Lake City, and it will increase the housing opportunities by providing two different housing types. We are proposing for sale houses as well as for sale townhomes. So those would be attached units. So if you didn't want to have a yard, but you still wanted to live in a community that was a well-planned community with amenities and set aside and things like that, there's two types of product offered. As a point of reference, this is 47 coming into the city. Bascom Norris is here. Here's 247. The 100-acre parcel, and it's actually 93.8, is a rectilinear parcel with a diagonal frontage along Bascom Norris where it turns into Marvin Burnett here. The property, as you can see, sits across the street from the ball fields here, and here's Bascom Norris along the north side of the angled portion, and then here's Marvin Burnett Road. As you can see from this aerial photography, there are a lot of wetlands in the area, and through this project area, there is a stream type creek that's through here, so there is active wetland in the property. The timeline that we were working with is we began this process last year in meeting with city staff. We had a pre-application meeting, and we've had several subsequent meetings with city and county staff because we realized the county is operationally under the control of the roads. We have to coordinate water, sewer, electric with multi-jurisdictional interests, and we applied for the annexation last year. The annexation went through a second public reading in January, so the lands are now officially in the city of Lake City. Following the annexation, we supplied our applications for a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning. Staff have been reviewing those items, and we had a community meeting last night at the library over here, and we had about 10 people at that meeting. Although the city of Lake City does not have a neighborhood workshop process, we emulated a process that we are very familiar with that is standardized in the city of Gainesville, the city of Alachua County. We notified folks in a 400-foot radius around the property, and like I said, we had about 10 people last night, and actually a reporter was there. So he interviewed me last evening about, well, less than 24 hours ago. We are here tonight at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting to obtain hopefully your recommendation to the City Commission that they forward this item to the Department of Economic Opportunity in Tallahassee, and also recommend that they then work with the annexation and then putting the zoning component into this property here. We anticipate 2 city councils. One will be in February, and then after that period that Robert talked about, as the state takes about 35 to 45 days to review, that there will be a second and final hearing sometime in May of this year. So here is the future land use map. As Robert described, the property here is about 93.8 acres. It has residential low land use from the county, and then it has county commercial land use and some city commercial land use on the property. Our request is to remove all of the commercial land use in favor of residential moderate land use, which matches this residential moderate that's also in the city of Lake City. Keep in mind, this is county land use over here, this is county recreation use. We want to use the most common logical nexus, which is the residential moderate land use, which allows 4 units per acre, similar to the property over here upon this area. We have looked at the city's comprehensive plan, and specifically the future land use element. The property lies within an area that is on an urban major collector. It is inside the city's urban development area, so it is proximate to water and sewer. Water does touch the property. We do realize that we will need to create about 1,000-foot extension for the provision of sanitary sewer in the site, and we will obviously be building at least 1 lift station inside the property to handle the residential homes. Also in the comprehensive plan policy, we know that Florida is growing rapidly, sometimes with motorcyclists, and that in our initial meetings, one of the comments we received is that there needs to be more housing supply in the city of Lake City. So converting vacant commercial land into residential land is actually technically a downzoning. You know, Usually commercial land has a higher value than residential land, so we were effectively down zoning, if you will, the property to be all residential land use. In addition, the housing element, goal number 3, directs the city to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing in suitable environments at affordable costs to meet the needs of the city's present and future citizens, including those residents with special needs. So we are proposing a community that has multiple types of housing in a planned development format. This will all be on potable water, sanitary sewer, and have all the traditional utilities and amenities of a regular urban neighborhood. In looking at a comprehensive plan amendment, some of the things that we customarily look at in accordance with state law is that the surrounding area has compatibility. This project proposes placing residential homes in an area that is primarily residential in nature. Residential to the north, to the west, to the south, and in the context area. We do not think this is an ideal location for the commercial land use. We also understand that there is a traffic concern that has been expressed since day one. The site's existing land use of having commercial on it has the potential to produce more traffic than downzoning into residential. And I will show you some tables that talk about that. We are also conducting and have been working on a professional traffic impact analysis in concert with the county, and we will have FDOT opining on that through the actual state review process, because we realize that we can't solve all the problems. We know that there's problems there today. We know that when there are large ball tournaments, that Bascom Norris and Marvin Burnett can get really backed up. So we will be suggesting not only modifications that will be directly related to this project, probably in the form of deceleration lanes or dedicated turn lanes and things like that, but we'll be looking at making recommendations for what we call transportation demand management, TDMs, and transportation system management, TSM, type modifications, so that prior to any widenings occurring, that there can be things done out there with signal timings at either end of the segment lengths and help balance the traffic. We're also going to recommend some strategies that will help reduce the volume of people like going to a ball game and in favor of using perhaps some shuttle buses and some community mechanisms to get people there without placing excessive parking in the ball fields across the street. We have a letter and have asked the superintendent of Columbia County School System to confirm that there is capacity available. The homes that are being proposed are generally purchased from first-time home buyers or empty nesters. So we do know there will be some children associated with this, but generally these are first-time home buyers prior to starting a family or wanting not to have to take care of large lots and a yard, and so we get a lot of empty nesters in here. Regarding utilities, as you saw in the letter that was submitted, we know that you all, number one, have water. Number two, that we will have to create off-site extensions to the sanitary sewer system. And as a courtesy, it was contained in the letter that there is a shortage of water meters. We are proposing a phased project that will take time to construct. Our total number of units that you will see in the rezoning application is 325. We estimate we will probably be breaking that into units of about 50 units per phase, so roughly 6 phases or so. So that strategic phasing will help the city with future water demand, sewer demand, so that they can strategically plan modifications at the plant, as well as supplying things like necessary meters and valves. So we will not be asking for 325 meters anytime soon. In fact, the question was asked last night by a citizen how long this might take. We envision that we will spend the majority of this year and next in the land use amendment and rezoning and in engineering design. There will also be permitting, of course, through the water management district, through the county, and through the local utilities. So we anticipated and we informed people last night that the probable earliest construction might occur would be sometime around the year 2025 or very late 2024. These projects take a long time. We also realized, because we were alerted by your staff, that there are concerns of the proximity to the Cannon Creek Air Park, which sits about 2,225 feet from the runways. They have 2 runways, 1836, which goes north-south, and 927, which runs east-west. At our closest point, we're about 2,200 feet away, not quite a half mile. We are not in alignment with either one of the runways, and so the Federal Aviation Administration, which predicates runway protection zones at the end, approaches and departures of the runway, are very clear of this property. So in other words, no plane should be in alignment over this property coming into land at any one of those. We also realize that noise is a concern. I'm a pilot myself, and I don't want people to take away my rights, and so we do not want to remove the rights of anybody in Cannon Creek or have somebody, say, well, I just don't like that sound, in the future. So we feel that, number one, at a half mile away, that the noise of the aircraft will generally be in the air. While they're on the ground taxiing or doing a run-up, it'll be ameliorated by the fact that we're about a half mile away, and there's a lot of woods and vegetation between there. A question was asked last night at the workshop we held, well, what about security? We don't want anybody leaving, this community, walking through the woods and getting on a taxiway or running into an air, an air travel way or a runway, and being an obstacle or being injured. We know that there's a 75-foot detention swale that runs the entire western length of this property. So during the course of the engineering, we will look at options such as fencing to keep people in. I really don't think personally that somebody's going to try to trek a half mile through the woods, but I was a kid once too, and I kind of liked to do it on my little dirt bike when I was growing up, but don't see that as a real threat here. Mostly important though is our plan is not in alignment with the runways, and so this keeps the approaches free of any obstructions. The maximum height on these structures out here would be 2-story. We'd have either a 2-story house or a 2-story townhome. Okay, so in addressing common concerns that we hear, you see the surrounding land use here in the county is a residential density of 2 dwelling units per acre. We are seeking the city land use of residential moderate 4 dwelling units per acre, but upon that we are proposing a rezoning that would limit it down to 325 units, so roughly 3.25 dwelling units per acre. Addressing the common concern of traffic, and this is a good one. This will require 2 clicks, please. This is the traffic projection that we have completed in our office, which was prepared by a licensed traffic engineer. The project has the ability to generate at full build out 2,907 daily trips with AM peak outbound trips of 156 or a PM inbound of 180, people coming home at 5 o'clock. Under the existing land uses in both the city and the county, you could build shopping center, you could build single family detached, you could build general office, and you could do a food outlet. The total combination of the potential of all those uses would be over 26,000 trips, because commercial has a lot higher trip generation than residential. So what we've illustrated in our traffic impact analysis, that this is actually through the down zoning of this property, a reduction of a potential of 23,241 vehicular trips. And in the AM peak, 605 trips reduced, and in the PM peak, 2,262. And so all that information, while it's very empirical in nature, will be a part of the application process that goes to the State of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, and FDOT will review this. So the requested entitlements result in 23,241 fewer potential trips than what the land use would allow today. This is the letter that we obtained from the Columbia County Office of the Superintendent that shows that the area has been zoned for Melrose Park Elementary, Richardson 6th grade, Lake City Middle School in Columbia. And the district has given us a letter that says that sufficient capacity exists to provide education support to students who may eventually live on the subject property. So there's no deficiency in the school system. This is the map that I showed you earlier that shows that the property is within what is called the urban development area, an area that is served generally by utilities and where residential growth should occur in the context of the city. This map, while a little bit faint because of the ambient light here, shows you the subject property here on Bascom Norris relative to the Cannon Creek Airport. This is 1836 here, this is 927, and we've drawn in these polygonal areas which emulate what the runway protection zones are for the approach and departure of these runways, 1836, 927, And you can see that, while somebody may be in the traffic pattern here, or if they were in the traffic pattern here, they should not be over the top of this property. And you can see the distance. That creek that runs through here also has large wooded areas, which I presume to have additional wetlands off-site. And this is the large regional stormwater facility here. That 75-foot detention and conveyance swale here, we feel is a very good buffering element between us and the residential areas here. And that's where we will look at, alternatives through the engineering process. So before you today, you have the city staff recommendation. And if you give that just a couple clicks, you can see that in all of the application materials, each of the city departments have denoted that this application is approvable from planning and zoning, business licensing, code enforcement, permitting, water department, sewer department, gas department, water distribution and collection, customer service, public works, and then the fire department. So with that, I'd like to conclude. If there are any questions you have specifically of me, I am here, as well as one of my colleagues, Mr. Seth Wood, who has helped tremendously in the preparation of this application and a lot of the logistics and scheduling of meetings and the workshop that we held last night. Thank you for your attention.
Before you depart, I do have one question. Because we are reviewing simultaneously both of your petitions, is there anything that would have been in your follow-up? You said you had 2 PowerPoints. Do you want to cover everything all at once? So
I
that
think
we can move through this all at once, or do you want us to separate this into 2 petitions, 2 comments, 2 votes, 2 everythings?
I think it would be prudent, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the offer to do that, because there are elements in the zoning, and I realize that when the public speaks, whether they're for an application or opposing an application, it's generally very hard to separate the items that might be associated with land use, and somebody may be talking about, well, what are you gonna do about the wetlands? So there are slides in the rezoning, and so if we wanna click through that, I will do a bit of an expedited presentation, but I will show you a couple of slides that will definitely relate to the use of the land that I think would be helpful for your discussions.
I would highly recommend that.
I think it's a great idea.
For our sake and most notably for the sake of the citizens of Lake City.
Very thoughtful, Mr. Chair, thank you. Okay, good old F5, perfect. So this is the second presentation, and again, this is been entered into the record. We sent you all a PDF copy of this, and give me a click, please, thank you. So this request is very similar, as you can see. We are requesting to go from 3 different zoning types, Columbia County RSF2, Columbia County Commercial Intensive, and Lake City Commercial General, to Lake City Planned Residential Development. And our intent is to apply the land with the City of Lake City zoning following its annexation into the city. And we also intend to apply unifying elements on the land area for strictly residential development. The opportunities that we see are to increase the tax base of the city, but also to increase the housing opportunity and diversity of type of unit, as I talked about. We are proposing single-family detached houses for sale and attached single-family townhomes for sale. There will be a homeowners association that takes care of common areas of the property, so it will be well-maintained, and this is an overall planned, phased neighborhood. This will also, through its reduction in the intensity of the commercial land use, reduce the potential traffic impacts on the road network by removing the commercial zoning. And the reason that we specifically chose the planned residential development, or the PRD, is because it allows flexible design standards so we can predicate setbacks, building heights, and dial everything in and give the city an exact phasing plan, effectively, that shows them when things will come online. It also delivers multiple housing types into the city and creates a unique housing opportunity. And when we spoke with Robert and staff early on, there was no one zoning category that would allow us to do what we wanted to do. So we chose the PRD. This is the context area map, which you are familiar with from the previous slideshow. This is the aerial map, and you can see that wetland area through here, as well as wetlands in this area, because you can see the signature of the trees, and you can see how that matches across the street. We know that the soils in here tend to keep the water table very high, and so we are proposing very specific protections on this property through the zoning process. The timeline is familiar because you saw this. The property was annexed formally into the city of Lake City last month, and we hope that this process will conclude in May of this year. This is the land use map, and with a click you will see we are removing all the commercial inside the project boundary. And then this is the zoning map, where we are requesting that the RSF2, the commercial general, and then the commercial intensive all be removed from the property in favor of a unifying PRD. And so what does that actually mean and look like? This is, in your packet, this is the preliminary development plan. And with one click of this, you can see that those areas that I was highlighting before that go through and transcend the property are the wetland areas. Areas that are designated B are areas that will be set-aside areas, and they will effectively be protected in accordance with the comprehensive plan of the City of Lake City and your land development code with unified buffers surrounding them. So this will provide a great buffer for those folks that live on the west here, because with the exception of this little bit here and down here, this whole area to the west is buffered by conservation set-aside area. The only activities that we have that will be allowed will be active recreation, like in the core, if we wanted to have a community clubhouse with a pool and a tennis court or something like that. But outside of that, passive recreation opportunities against the edge of these areas might be walking trails or places to go watch birds and nesting animals and things like that, where you can do take photographs, but we won't allow people to be getting into these conservation areas, okay? The areas that are denoted A, which shows up much more vividly in yellow on a computer monitor, those are the actual areas of where their homes would be. So they would follow a path coming in off of a central connection point, which would be aligned with the street across here, where the ball fields are. And then we have placed additional emergency ingress and egress points, which would be closed and bollarded so as not to have multiple entrances, but to allow, should emergency access be necessary, if an accident occurred or a tree fell, there would be ways for residents to get in and out, as well as for emergency vehicles to be able to get in and out. And we also programmed an entrance here so that if this charter school ever rezones or redevelops in the future, there may be an opportunity to formalize a road here, where currently today they just have effectively what is a driveway coming off Marvin Burnett. So as you can see, all the set-aside areas here create kind of an interlinked area, and the vast majority of lots, whether they're down here in the southern portion or here, are all surrounded by wetlands and buffers. In fact, the property is about a 45%, 55% set-aside versus developable area. There is a great deal set aside here in the B areas, and the land has about a 50% utility on it. That's why we're requesting a zoning classification that allows a little bit denser project, because ordinarily, when we look at a piece of property, and for easy math, if you had 100 acres, you generally need somewhere between 20 to 25 acres for stormwater management facilities. You need 10 to 12% for roadways and right-of-ways and public utility easements for things like a lift station or utility corridor. Well, that's been kind of dialed in because we have to preserve and maintain all these areas. And you can see that we've done our best job to kind of cluster some houses in this area here, and then cluster development here, which provides then total protection to the creek and stream system here, and then buffers all those independent features up here. The only place that we have to have any real notable engineering heroics, I would say, is here, because we will have to build a bridge across that creek area there to protect that. The planned residential development master plan map has a development standards table, which we made larger here. This shows that in area A, we can have single family detached homes, and in area A, we are allowed to have attached townhomes. The City of Lake City does not have what's called single family detached. Anytime there is a multiple residential structure put together, it's effectively called multifamily development. But we wanted to give you every confidence that what we're doing is not an apartment complex in here. We are building residential townhomes for sale, fee simple real estate. I won't reiterate these same concerns that are always addressed, during land use and zoning come forward, and we have the same responses in here, and we are really cognizant of the utility issues. There's a meter shortage statewide and countrywide, as a matter of fact, but the same responses apply. Go ahead. This shows the traffic with the reduction by removing or downzoning the property by removing the commercial land uses and zoning off here. This is the school letter that shows that there's adequate capacity in the system signed by the superintendent of the school board. This shows that the property is inside the urban development area. This shows our proximity to Cannon Creek and the runways of 1836 and 925 and the RPZs that are associated with those runways. And this is the staff review, which is recommending that you approve this application or recommend in fact as the advisory board to the city commission that this application continue to move forward. And those are the 3 checked pages that I just showed you here. So with that, thank you for the opportunity, because people will talk about all the different aspects of it, and we want everyone to be able to ask good questions, be able to respond to them as best as possible. So with that, I will conclude. I thank you very much for your attention in this, and we're here to answer any questions any of you might have.
All right, before we open the floor up for comments from the public on these 2 petitions, do we have any questions from members of the board or the agent on behalf of the proponent?
What percentage of single-family homes will be in your total makeup?
Okay, so out of the 325, we currently have, what would you say, Sam?
The percentage of the total?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't do the math right off the top of my head, but there's about 60 to 70 townhomes, with the remainder being single-family lots.
And a townhome represents how many?
6 units, yeah. So I think that there are a total of 10 townhome buildings that we have drawn on there, for 60 of the units being in townhomes, with the remainder being single-family detached lots with site-built homes on them. Yeah, I didn't know I could do the percentage that quickly. It's easier for me to visualize what the map looks like.
So would it be like 40% single-family home?
Of 60 units out of the proposed
60 out of 325,
That would be
roughly 20%. Yeah.
20% would be the townhome. So about 250 proposed. Individual houses. So it would be primarily houses.
Be primarily houses with about 20% townhomes.
Everything is for sale, there are no rental properties.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are no rental properties in here. This is for sale fees. I was answering through the chair. Answering through the chair, yes, everything is a for sale fee simple, product. This is not a rental community whatsoever.
More questions or discussion?
Where would the lift station go?
Great question. The lift station would be centrally located, obviously at the lowest point. When we do that design, which we have not yet done, we try to locate that to minimize the number of lift stations. However, we have a creek, so you know that our property goes this way.
Right.
There may be a necessity to have one on each side. We will try to engineer it such that we centrally locate a singular one so that it can be then run through a force main and up to the city system without having to manifold multiple stations together.
So traffic is a concern for most of the people that drive on Bascom Morris. You're gonna have one way in, one way out with the emergency ingresses and everything. And you might have plans later for another entrance on the other street, that's down Drive.
By the school.
By the school, yeah. What's your entrance gonna look like? Is it gonna have?
Can you go ahead and speak up a bit? We're having people making hand signals in the back of the
I
room.
gotcha. Are you gonna have a buffer at the front as well, just for like a tasteful entrance?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind backing up to that PD master plan, I don't know if you can get to the one that had the green, the yellow, and then the street network.
Give me just a second.
There are some of the wetland areas that are along the front, and so I'll point out that we are trying to do a tasteful entrance along the front and to have the housing product sit far enough back to where it's more intriguing what's in there as opposed to looking into people's backyards. At the entry point, I am quite confident that we will have a landscape sort of divider in there so that inbound traffic can get off of Bascom Norris and quickly get into the development. And then as you're departing or leaving, that your opportunity to go left or right or straight will give you ample queuing length. It's an important consideration. It's probably, I'm gonna guess slide, oh no, it's in the other one actually. That's the comp plan amendment. It's in the rezoning one. Yeah, thank you. Go down, it's gonna be a largely white slide. Yeah, it's 11. So I always use that little projector icon in the lower hand card. Perfect. And give me a couple of clicks, please, so the A and B will illuminate. Or maybe just actually back up 2 clicks. That'll help more graphically. So you can see that we have a good deal of wetland buffer and protection along this portion, so you will not see any units. This little area here will be sort of a closed cusped area, and we'll have landscaping along Bascom Norris here. But along here, this will really be kind of like the signature front. So at that main entrance, our idea is to get traffic off of Bascom Norris and into the development here or feed it down here. And when you're coming out, to have enough queuing length so that cars won't be backing up and creating congestion at the entrance point here. So we're currently continuing to analyze, and we'll work with the city and county staff, and then ultimately with DOT where the connections are over here at 247 and 47. To ensure that. And like I said, we are going to be also recommending some TDMs and TSMs, transportation demand and transportation system management techniques in the overall plan. Yes. You're welcome, sir.
We also have a shortage of meeting venues, and I would imagine that your swimming pool, if developed, would be available to residents and their guests only. Then I could understand that. But for a clubhouse, would a clubhouse be open, the clubhouse rental be open to the public? Because we need more venues of like that.
Mr. Chair, that's kind of an early question at this point in time. One of the questions we had last night is, how much is a unit going to cost? Well, if we knew in 2025 what wood and lumber and asphalt and all it cost, we have not got down to the programming yet of the recreation facilities and, customarily, what I can say, not related to this. People have birthday parties, they have, social events in there. It all depends, I've seen some communities offer their facilities for, planners like me who want to do a neighborhood workshop and there's not a public library or something, but we haven't got to that decision point at all yet, Mr. Chair.
And with that was development, and increase in population, I don't know what Florida Department of Transportation is doing, but seems like Bascom Norris will have to be widened at some point in the near future.
That was a discussion that we were talking about last night, Mr. Chair, and one of the county commissioners attended the workshop last night. We have really good relationships with the Florida Department of Transportation. Sometimes they hire our employees and sometimes their employees come and work in our office. I heard the concerns last night and I've been in touch with staff since the time we had our first meeting with staff. I know that there are programs out there and some of the things that we would like to see is, what can be done to accelerate that? The DOT has programs, the Small Community Rural Assistance Program, SCRAP and SCOP and things like that. Part of our research effort will be seeing what DOT can do to help where there is an opportunity for them to spend money off of the state's highway system. Yeah.
One question I have now that it's been brought up, as far as the recreational amenities that'll be under management of the HOA, clubhouses, pools, tennis courts, the preliminary transportation analysis that you did for the 300 to 325 dwelling units, does that take into account all of those birthday parties, special events, pool parties, tennis parties, et cetera, that are going to be taking place within this PRD?
Yes, Mr. Chair. When our professional traffic engineers do a traffic impact analysis, they use the Institute of Traffic Engineers, most current edition, which is 11, And that allocates roughly about 9.57 trips per household per day to a residential unit. A little fewer to a townhome, because people have different driving styles if they live in a townhome versus a single-family detached house. So the answer to your question is yes, it accounts for all the trips that a household makes, not just, you know, a member of the household going to work and returning. It allocates 9.57 trips to each residential unit as a single-family detached house, and I think it's 6.67 to a townhome, a little fewer. Different driving pattern if people live in a townhome, but yes.
Do we have any other questions or discussion from members of the board for the proponent before we move to public comment?
One more, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Did you mention something about parking across the street, that you would have overflow, there'll be an overflow parking available to you over by the softball field?
Mr. Chair, what I was saying is that we were informed by staff that when there are large-scale tournaments and events, that there's often overflow parking, you know, into the sides of the road or into the field areas there. We are not proposing to have overflow parking from this neighborhood there. What we are proposing is to offer some strategies to the city so that when large events and tournaments occur, that perhaps shuttles or other like buses could be used to get people safely to this. So as part of our traffic impact analysis, we are going to be presenting some strategies to the city that they may employ that will help lessen the demand on this property and lessen the volume of traffic here. There are some strategies we think that might help, that we see in, you know, for example, in Gainesville, where you have huge, you know, tournaments that occur, whether they be at Santa Fe College or whether they be at the University of Florida or some of the high schools there. So that's going to be a component of our actual traffic impact analysis recommendations.
There's no security in your plan, is it, like mounted or vehicular security that would be assigned to managed by the HOA?
Mr. Chair, we have not gotten to that level. We are not proposing a gated community here. So we haven't made any decisions about, you know, on-site security or
Motorized patrol?
yeah, motorized patrol or anything like that. Not at this point in the land use and zoning, sir.
Anything else for the agent for proponent?
Okay,
Right, at this time, seeing none.
I'll be here.
You may be seated.
Thank
We, I remind you, you are still under oath. We may have to call you up after public comment is
Certainly.
concluded for clarifying remarks.
My pleasure, thank you.
All right, as I mentioned, I really don't want to turn that on, y'all. We're gonna be polite. We're gonna be clear and concise. If you have to get up and just say, my comments have already been voiced by a number of previous individuals, I wanted to touch on A, B, and C, and then take your seat, that's fine. We can record your comments that way. We're gonna start, like I said, on my right, front row. We're gonna move through the front row, then we're gonna come to the second row. As I point, if you wish to come to the podium, you'll be sworn in, you'll state your name and your address for Mr. Angelo, and we'll try to get y'all out of here before 10 p.m. Savvy? All right, very nice. So starting over here on my right, front row, does the media want to say anything about this? Very nice. Moving over to the left, University of Maryland sweatshirt.
Yes, I think I'd like to say something.
Please come down. You swear the testimony you're about to give this evening to the best of your knowledge and ability is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very nice. Name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
My name is Randolph Geiss, spelled G-A-I-S-S. I reside at 280 Southwest Voyager Court in Lake City, Florida. I live in the Cannon Creek community. Just last away. I'll try and keep this simple. Seems like an interesting proposal, but I'm going to voice my opposition to this project. I am concerned about the traffic, both on the ground and in the air. I am concerned that it's just going to overwhelm the roads. I'm just not seeing that this is good for this part of Lake City as a whole. That's all I have to say.
Hey, you said quick and fast, I gave you quick and fast.
If everyone does that, we may have you out of here by 9 p.m. That's what we're looking for. All right. Moving to his right, my left.
She's in agreement with me.
Very nice, thank you. Coming to the back, would you care to tell? Oh, come on, you came all the way down here to my meeting, you don't want to speak? All right, moving to the right, alternate agent for proponent, anything to add? All right, agent, you've already spoken. Sir on the aisle here?
No, sir.
Very nice, moving to the third row, plaid on the end.
Excellent presentation, that's all I gotta say.
All right, pink shirt, excellent presentation. Crossing the aisle, we have, you've been here before.
Yes, I have.
Come on down.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening, to the best of your knowledge and ability, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
Liz, last name Fryer, Frayre, 160 Southwest Challenger Lane, Lake City, Florida, 32023. I'm sorry, fine.
All right.
I am here with concerns, as I'm sure everybody here is as well. I'm pretty loud.
Yes, you got folk on the back wall though, sometimes we all gotta project.
The first question that I'm a little confused about, maybe everyone can assist me on this one, is why there is a need to change the land use to city planned residential developments, since the proposed developer buyer, which is Adams Home, by the way, I don't know if you all know that, have clearly stated on the meeting held on 2/6 that they are planning single-family RSF2, which is already in the plan that is current, for 325 units, and they will be pretty much single-family homes as well as attached homes. And somebody help me out on that one.
Would you care to address right now, or do you wanna wait till all public comment has occurred
I
before?
was saying, I can enumerate, take all of her at once.
Okay, let's let her finish her comment, and then if you'd like to offer a direct rebuttal, we'll go into that.
So that's my very first, that I wanna clarify for everybody to understand, because since it is already on the RSF2, I just don't see why there would need to be any amendment or anything, while it could stay the same way it is. From there, I would like to jump into, and trust me, I'll be fast, I have it all written down this time. Our concerns, my concerns, and probably most of the people who are here is concerned, is the increased vehicle use on an already crowded Baskin Norris Road and Sisters Welcome Road. Currently, the two-lane Baskin Norris Road is struggling to handle the current traffic between FL 47 and US 90. Any added load as a result of the approval of this change is unacceptable to us. The fact that the infrastructure is not developed yet, water, sewer, drainage, etc., we're putting the wagon in front of the horse. Flooding as a result of excessive rainwater runoff to surrounding areas, as well as it could be flooding or it could be dryness, needs to be looked at a little more carefully. I have told this gentleman yesterday, as I told a couple of people that I met yesterday at the meeting, that their presentation is superb. I've been in business many years, and theirs is one of the best I've ever seen. But presentation and facts are two different things. The next issue I have is the negative impact on dense housing around our existing single-family home community. Negative impact on county commercial intensive and city commercial general and around our existing community of single-family homes, because, as you had brought up, At this point, they don't know what the homeowners association is going to allow or not, because this is preliminary plan. They say on their documentation and packet that they have added people who will be visitors, if there's parties. Well, how can you do that if they haven't even brought up those questions to the homeowners association for presentation? So do you see what I mean? As well as the protected wildlife environment concerns, vehicle and pedestrian safety, increased workload and police and fire, negative impact on school, and that one I'm going to expand on quite a lot. Negative impact on local property values as well. The fact is that you can't pretty much evaluate a home that is attached to a single family home. The cost is a lot less. And would you rather have a home in an area where it's single family home surrounding it, or where you have townhouses, villas, etc., all clustered together? The next issue that comes to be addressed, it's nearly 100 acres, but there is protected lands on there. So that leaves, from what I understand, about 50 acres of available buildable space. Is it 50 acres prior to or after you put the roads in?
Please don't question him
No, I'm
direct.
sorry,
Your-
and I
these
didn't,
comments
I'm
are
just saying
from-
because
are
that's
from
what
you.
I heard yesterday, so I didn't wanna like give my back to him when I'm speaking in regards to what he said.
That's quite all right.
But the fact that the roads, the park, the swimming pool, is that minus from those 50 acres that are left? Because a lady yesterday, and I forgot her name, she's here, the teacher, where is she? She's not here. She brought up the fact that if you divide those numbers of units into 50 acres, you're talking approximately almost 7 units per acre. It's no longer 4. I understand that they're taking the entirety of the property and taking out the wetlands, etc., in the protection areas. But then if you do the actual math of what is left over, we're talking about almost 6 to 7 units per acre. It's no longer 4. I might have misunderstood when yesterday the meeting was going on, that they are looking to start, and I hope someone can correct me if I'm wrong, because what I heard and a couple of other people heard yesterday was they're looking early 2024. And that to me is an extremely quick time for any of the things that we are concerned with to be even addressed or even to commence being corrected. Sorry, I'm trying to catch myself here. The number of vehicles.
You're doing great.
I'm sorry?
You're doing great.
Okay, I'm trying to move it along for everybody, so that everybody has an opportunity. The letter from the school board, and this one I'm close with because I'm very close with Broward County School Board and the situation which just has been taking place there for the past 1.5 years.
Did you say Broward County?
That's correct. Dr. Cartwright resigned today, to the joy of many. So I am very aware how the school boards around the country work. Very aware. And I would like to know, because I have heard from very good, accurate people that there's a couple of schools that are going to be renovated in the very near future. Actually 2, and there may even be a 3rd. Those children will have to be transferred to the other schools that are currently open and available for them. To me, children's education is imperative to the future of this country. by them stating, and I would like to meet personally, and I will try to make an appointment with the superintendent of schools. Because this letter is not accurate. If you even close down one school for renovation, there is no way to accommodate those kids in the current school system that we have. And it's gonna be two, Melrose and East Black. Plus, there will be a third in the very near future as well. I'm saying another year and a half.
I'm not sure, but has there been a suggestion that they would shut down the entire school to renovate it all at once?
Yes,
Or just
yes.
Usually they do renovations during the summer.
in phases too?
Yeah, but unfortunately, NEPAC, it has needed renovations for such a long time, we're talking decades, that the fastest way that it can be accomplished is closing the whole thing down and doing it. There is a 12 months to 18 months plan, as well as Melrose. Melrose may not be completely closed, but the majority. And because of safety issues, obviously the students cannot breathe while construction is taking place. And the construction is definitely gonna take more than the 3 months of summertime. So even if 10% of those homes have children in them, right now, our school board cannot handle, under the current circumstances, what's going on. So by adding any additional students, this letter is completely fabricated. I'm not saying that, somebody just, falsely wrote it. I'm just saying the numbers don't add up. And the facts don't add up. Those are my main concerns at this point. I have further concerns that will come if it gets past this stage. I also have, since Laura Shippey couldn't be here, she's taking care of her mom out of state. She asked me to bring up some issues that she wanted me to let you all know how she felt. And if that's okay, I would like to do so.
I would recommend, since that individual is not here to be sworn in and put on public record,
I can send it via email.
send via email, it can be added to the file, but I do not want to put you in a position where you're going
No,
under
absolutely,
oath
that's
and
why I
having
asked.
to state her public comments.
Right,
Please forward that along through channels and we'll see that it gets added to the project file.
I would appreciate that.
Anything else?
I believe at this point, until now, we're set for this. But going forward, if it does not get tabled until all these things are revised, and including the water, the sewer, and all the other concerns that have been brought up in the packet and by city employees and engineers, then I will have more concerns in the next meeting.
And there are several more steps this will have to go through prior to approval. So those can be addressed at that point further down the road once cart and horse issues, as you indicated, have been taken care of.
Yes, because I would really feel it would be fair for the community to revise everything in that packet to be accurate.
Right, if that's all you have, please take your seat at this time. I will offer the proponent the opportunity to make a direct rebuttal. I do not want this to turn into a back and forth between parties in this room. You can rebut some of the issues that were brought up, and we'll continue moving down the line after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that I'm necessarily gonna offer any rebuttal, I'm just gonna offer some clarification. Ms. Fryer did attend the workshop last night and asked some great questions, and I enumerated 9 items that she spoke about. Number 1, the need to change the land use to PRD while there is county land use on it. Well, the need is evident because we have annexed the property into the city of Lake City. And in accordance with Florida statutes, you have 1 calendar year to place the municipality's land use and zoning upon the property. So that's why we're doing it. It's more or less a like-kind exchange, but as you saw, as presented as competent substantial evidence, we are actually downzoning the property by removing commercial land use and zoning from the property. The second question was vehicle use on Bascom Norris and Sisters Welcome, and any additional load is unacceptable. We are producing a professionally prepared traffic impact analysis that's been coordinated through a methodology agreement with Columbia County, who has jurisdictional control on the roads, and all the agencies, the city, the county, and the Florida Department of Transportation will all review that, and we are proposing this as a phased project. So it's very important to understand that, well, here we are in 2023, it'll take us through, the summer of this year to get through the land use and zoning component. Then there is engineering, as John explained last night, John Pfeiffer from our team, water management district permits, utility permits, and so forth. And then the project will likely move forward in phases of 50 units at a time. So it's going to take time for that impact to be there on the road. And certainly things like a traffic signal or a blinking light will be components of the analysis as this continues to mature. The third point was flooding. And as I explained last night, under the Water Management District rules, that post-development runoff cannot exceed pre-development runoff. And more so, if the site is receiving off-site water today, it must continue to receive that off-site water. And you saw that diagonally from the northeast to the southwest, water transmits through that property. So there were several citizens that attended last night, and we explained to them that through the Water Management District permitting process that we would be assured and that there would be professional engineering review done. We modeled the areas hydrologically as well as through soil testing, and we do analysis through either a software program called ICPR or PONDS that will help look at the overall watershed of the entire area, not just the 93 acres, and determine that no water will leave that site that didn't leave it in a pre-development condition. All drainage will be held on site in basins that are reviewed and permitted through the Swanee River Water Management District, signed and sealed by professional engineers of record in our office, and that's an enforceable condition. Number 4 was the dense housing around existing communities, and if we don't have an HOA yet today, how could we know how many people might come to a birthday party? Well, the answer to that, Mr. Chair and members, is that the Institute of Traffic Engineers, when they program how many trips occur at a house, that 9.57 trips per day accounts for the gross number of trips that happen. So while you may have a, 50th birthday party, or you may have a grandson's, birthday party at your house, the ITE trip generation manual calculates for those seasonal fluctuations as well as occasional events that occur at residential homes. So that is in the number that the ITE gives us when we prepare studies. The 5th question was about wildlife. I'll bring up something that she didn't bring up tonight that she asked last night too. There are gopher tortoises that are likely going to be found in 93.8 acres of property in Florida. And so initially, ecologists walked the site by conducting transects, meaning walking north-south or then east-west to create a grid pattern. And at a stage like this, we would do what's called a 15% survey. You do that to assess what you might find out there. The reason you don't do a 100% survey when you're at a large-scale comp plan amendment and rezoning is because those take months to occur because they go through state review. It's only when you are going through the engineering process that you would look specifically at doing a 100% gopher tortoise survey. And while you're there, you would look for any other threatened or endangered species. So while it is an initial part of our review to look at the ecology of the site, the final reviews will accompany detailed engineering studies because amendments would be proposed to physically modify the site. There was also a question in there when she was talking about wildlife. It's obvious that animals forage along creek areas and they use that for shelter and feeding and breeding and things of that nature. So we are going to designate those areas as permanent set-asides so that those animals that migrate along the creek, they're there today, they can be there 5 years from now or 50 years from now. I live in a very urban part of Gainesville, directly north of the University of Florida on 8th Avenue. I have bucks, does, foxes, coyotes, turkeys that all migrate up out of the Hogtown Creek and the Possum Creek area into my front yard, much to the dismay of my wife and her flowers. And they gobble those down and they go back in the creek. We do not think that this proposal, since we have so much land area, almost half the property is set aside, will modify or injure the migration patterns or the foraging patterns of animals and the commensals there. Because mainly when you are looking for gopher tortoises, while they are becoming less of a threatened species, it's the things that live in the gopher tortoise fold. The snakes, the frogs, and the other animals that are there. So you're looking for the commensal species that habitate with the gophers. And so that will be done during the engineering phase. The 6th point, police, fire, and schools. I can tell you that I did not fabricate a letter. The police department, the fire department have reviewed this and have checked the box that this is approvable. It is a phased project, and as the community continues to grow, I'm sure more police officers will be hired. As the tax base increases in the city, that will buy more fire trucks, more fire and rescue personnel, and the school system will change over time. As I said, I gave you a hint where I live, right off of 8th Avenue in Gainesville. I live next to Westwood Middle School on 34th Street. When my son's middle school, Howard Bishop, downtown Gainesville, was refurbished, temporaries and portables were put on the Westwood field. The kids were brought over, they tore down portions of Howard Bishop during the summer and they rebuilt it, and then those kids went back there. Now the Westwood kids are in the portables and they're literally demolishing the school across the street from my house. The school board systems, when they look at a proposal like this and they write a letter, the state of Florida's general approach is saying, is there capacity in the system-wide? So they total up all of the elementary schools, all the middle schools, all the high schools, and say, are there seats in the school? Again, since we have a project that is a phased project over time, it gives the school board a planning tool and mechanism to say, well, if 10% of this development occurs, be 32 houses, 32.5 houses, how many kids come out of 32.5 houses? 20, maybe? It gives them a logical planning tool to allow those children, by phase, to get into the school system. Number 7 point was property values and the attached units costing less money and that causing a negative impact. I can tell you personally that over the 32 years of my career as a planner, the creation of planned communities that are done under strict zoning regulations with a quality product and a homeowners association do not have a declining impact on the appreciation of surrounding property. It just doesn't happen. When you have a good quality neighborhood, it helps solidify and stabilize the economic market. And as I explained last night to other residents, they have something that you don't see too much anymore. And I think a finite quantity, specifically living in an air park community, that's a super awesome privilege. And to have that, you know, while we may have a new doctor or a new medical professional or somebody who maybe, you know, works in municipal services, they may say, gosh, one day that's gonna be my house. So we find very frequently that people from starter homes kind of learn the area and say, you know, one day I'd like to learn how to fly, and that's my goal, that's my dream. So we do not see that building entry-level or empty nester homes decreases the value of surrounding real estate. Our number 8 point was at about 100 acres, if you divide it by units, it roughly equates to 7 dwelling units per acre. That is mathematically a fact. That is the net. As I explained last night, a very large development, some of you might know, called Hale Plantation. It has large lots, it has one gated neighborhood, it has townhomes in the downtown area or in the village center, it has golf villas. Density, as looked at by every community I've ever seen, out of the 67 counties in Florida and 410 municipalities, is done by the gross land area. That gross area that you have, and in our case 93.8 acres at 3.25 dwelling units per acre is effectively what we're asking for, does get concentrated. So if you were to cordon off a net area, it's a fact that you'd say, well, that neighborhood or that corner of that community has a 7 dwelling unit per acre, but that's not how we allocate density by our comprehensive plans and land development code. We look at the gross of a community. And then lastly, the number 9, the school board. A couple of schools are set for renovation. If you close down one school, there's no way to account for or accommodate any students. I think that the school board should, be accountable in this process. I have no problem, obviously, with recalling the school superintendent. We did our best diligent effort by requesting a letter. We did not fabricate anything for the application. And I'm sure that the school board can, respond if we would, if they'd like us to say, well, if we're gonna come in 50-unit chunks over a period of 6 or 7 phases, that they will be able to strategically accommodate additional students into the system. So no rebuttal, just more clarification.
All right, we ended with Ms. Liz, so moving to the left. Come on down, sir. Swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening to the best of your knowledge and ability is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God, yes. Very nice. Name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
William Campbell, Campbell, 115 Southwest Challenger Lane, Lake City, 32025. Well, like some of the other people here, I was at the meeting last night, and like you just said, well, she's gone. She said she really thought this was an eloquent presentation. And actually, I was about ready to walk out there and get the shovel and dig the first bit of dirt up there. It sounded that good.
We got a lot more steps before we start that session.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, Gary, let's see here, Gary has done this 100 times before. Gotta help those guys. Gary's done this 100 times before. He knows the answers and he knows where to go. One of the things that bothered me about his presentation was he said all these studies have been done, but they seem to be done by his people and not outside people. It may be true, it may be not, but I like even the acreage of the property. We started out last night, it was 100 acres. Now it's moved down to 93.8, I believe. And I do fly an airplane off of the runways down at Lake City, or at Cannon Creek. And it's a very small plane, very quiet plane, and it glides very well. And today was a very beautiful day to fly. And I just happened to be coming back around to land and landing from east to west, which put me on my downwind just to the left of that property. And when I look down at that property, I see all this water running down through it. I see all these trees, the place is completely forested. And then I think they're gonna take half of that, or 45% of it is gonna be wetlands, and then the remainder is gonna be houses. And I think, okay, now they gotta take all these trees out to put these houses in because it's forested, pretty much the whole thing. So even though you put that diagram up with the A and B areas, the land is behind it in a topographical picture showing what's really going on there. And it's gonna be disruptive to the environmental. I still don't care. They say, well, we can't let any more water run off that came into it before, like it is right now. But I don't know how you measure that. And by the time they put all that pavement down, all the houses down, all the asphalt and everything, and disturb the rest of the area where there's trees, where they gotta clear it out to make the houses fit, because it's pretty much completely wooded. I don't buy all this engineering crap that they're saying. And this is the reality of the situation. Then the traffic on that road is terrible right now. And saying, well, if we don't rezone it, what it could be was commercial, whatever it'd be, this many times higher, so we're only gonna make it this many times higher. Well, so what? It's way higher than it needs to be anyhow right now. So one of the other things was I don't know what power company put all those new big silver power poles down across the road there on that side of the road. And if they ever wanted to widen that road out, those power poles are probably in the way. And I think Jerry said that he had information said that, well, if they have to move them, they'll pay to move them. I don't buy that. They wouldn't put them in that place in the first place. So it's just, all the nice fluffy stuff versus what's reality or not, don't line up at all as far as I'm concerned. There's probably gonna have to be a traffic light there. There's some sort across the ball field and back. And if they put more lanes of road in for turns, that's gonna take more land, more property to do that. If they have to move those power poles back off to the property, that's gonna take more of that acreage away. So flying over that thing, I cannot envision 315 homes in 55% of that property. So just from the standpoint of logically looking at it, I don't know, that's about all I have to say is, and then they got the set-asides, the clubhouse, the pool, that all takes room. Doesn't add up, like I said, I can hear all these studies, but I don't hear any studies from independent people on this end that need to be done before that's given any kind of approval. I'm not even sure there's 93.8 acres there. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, continuing to move to our left, Madam, would you like to make a comment? Or have your topics been covered? Very nice, continuing to the left, to the left. Representative from city, do you wanna go last? Do you wanna go now?
I don't have any updates unless you have questions for me, Chair.
Let's get to all of our public comments. We may call you up to wrap this up with a lasso. Moving to, let's see, you got a row behind you. We'll cover the back wall last. Let's move to the rear, red shirt. White shirt next to her. Okay. Please approach. Doing well. Please raise your right hand. Swear the testimony you're about to give this evening is to the best of your knowledge and ability, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very nice.
All right.
Name and address of record for Mr. Angelo.
All right, James Brewster. I currently live at 304 Southwest Bambi Lane,
Spelling on the last name, please.
BREW. I also own property along the north runway, 3 lots there that's undeveloped, so, at Cannon Creek. All right, so basically, I just had a couple concerns. Jerry, are you saying that you're gonna build a hail plantation? In other words, I'm very familiar with Alachua County and the People's Republic of Gainesville. And I am not thrilled with anyone associated with developing Alachua County. Because the beauty of this county is, in my opinion, you guys are working for the people, and that'd be the goal, you know what I mean? And so that's my point. If you're trying to build a hail plantation, let's get it done, but I don't think they are. I guess I'm more familiar with a place in St. Augustine, World Golf Village, and they promoted the same thing called Segovia. And it's all townhomes, and it is a mess. And the builders are being sued left and right because they're poor quality. And on-street parking anywhere, you can't even hardly navigate the streets because they got cars parked everywhere. I don't know what the parking situation is gonna be like in this new development, but that's one concern I'd have if they got this done, is there gonna be a ton of parking, cars parked on the street. It's an awful thing. Brings down the value of the homes, and so forth. Sorry, I had one more thing here. Basically, my concern is a pilot, and Mr. Holmes sitting behind me here, I'm a minimum requirement of a pilot. But, I've heard of runways get shut down because of people complaining about the plane noise. And planes are noisy, and Cannon Creek's an awesome place, but it's just not, a lot of people that aren't into planes are not gonna feel friendly about it. And, all it's gotta do is gang up on them, and the next thing you know, Cannon Creek's no longer Cannon Creek. Anyway, that's all I want to say. Thanks.
You wanna kind of hold them till we have a group of them, or do you have like 9 old ones built up already again?
No.
It's all right.
That's not my moment.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever's your pleasure. We are absolutely not proposing a hail plantation. That is 2,300 units over several sections of land. This is a 325 unit neighborhood. So yes, we're not, I just use that as an analogy of an area that has different sizes. With regard to the parking though, everything that's proposed, whether it's a single family detached home or a townhome, they will have garages and they will have driveways. So while yes, someone could park in the street if you had, you know, a birthday party or something, all the units have garages. So the residents will have their cars most likely in the garage or in their own driveway. And I'm very accustomed to the concept of coming to the nuisance. That's what we call that. You know, you buy a house and all of a sudden you don't like the fact that your neighbor has chickens or farming and things like that. People will clearly know when they purchase here that they are in proximity of their park, and they are far enough away. I don't think that they'd have future residents any valid, you know, reaction, you know, for anything really enforceable on Cannon Creek because it's such a known large community to the southwest of here.
Can you come back to the podium? There was a follow-up question from a member of the board.
The townhome garages, that's gonna be a 1-car garage or a 2-car garage?
It depends on the design, yeah. Most of the townhomes, most of the townhomes are
2 parking spaces in front.
yeah, 2 parking spaces in front and then a garage in the townhome. So yeah, they're a little narrower obviously because they're an attached unit. All the housing product that the representative from Adams Homes was there last night, all the single family detached homes, I think everyone that I saw had a 2-car garage out of them.
Yeah, we have
Building the houses?
Yes, yes sir.
That's reassuring. From what I see, they're pretty good buildings.
Sorry.
You need to be quick.
I will. It's 3.
I will turn on that clock.
I know, I'm just
Now.
3 and 4 bedrooms, correct? 3 and 4 bedroom
Yes.
houses
Up here.
with 2 parking spaces
And 2-car garages.
and 2-car garage, but not all of them. Not the townhomes, just the single family homes. The single family homes don't have the 2-car garage.
The single family homes have 2-car garages, the townhomes would have a single garage.
Correct. If you usually have 3 to 4 bedroom houses, you know, most people have at least 2 cars. And most people don't use the garage to park their car.
Maybe down in Broward County. All right, show of hands, where did we just leave off? That was Mr. Brewster. So moving,
She said
Right.
everything.
okay, you're good?
Yes.
All right, coming across the aisle, gentleman in the yellow blazer.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give this evening to the best of your knowledge and ability is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
I'm Dave Holmes, Holmes, 244 Southwest Air Park, Glen, Lake City, of course, 32025. I think Mr. Yeah, he did a great job putting this together. However, there are a few things in here that I really hope that you're going to do further research on it. Don't want to elaborate any more on the transportation problem. That is a rather obvious one. I have a hard time with 325 homes is going to be a reduced traffic when we're only going to be 154 homes in a strip mall of some type. The numbers in the presentation here regarding water and sewer, they don't really add up. And I think the city engineering needs to look at that real strongly before you consider it. That's about all I had. I don't want to talk about air traffic. The property is going to be under one of our downwinds. Usually the power's back, So I hope that my friends don't hate me, but I really don't think the airplane noise is a big consideration about this. Thanks.
Yeah, we still like it.
Yeah.
We're not your friend anymore.
I know he does.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Moving to your right, Adam?
No,
Nothing?
thank you.
All right, so standing up, we got a fifth or a sixth row back there, ma'am? All right, turquoise shirt, dark gray shirt, come on down. You swear the testimony you're about to give this evening is to the best of your knowledge and ability, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name with spelling and legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
William Shippey, S-H-I, 2 P's, 2 E's. 244 Southwest Challenger Lane, Lake City. 32025. I just would like you to consider, when you're talking about traffic and Bascom Norris and that there was a meeting last month for another project development that would be some 222 housing or something on Bascom Norris, which is just down the street from here. And I understand there's another development on Sisters Welcome that's gonna be houses, 8 houses to an acre. I'm not sure how many they are, so when you take the whole thing in total, there's gonna be a tremendous amount of influx of people and traffic that hasn't been there before, so I just hope you take that into consideration. It's not just one and one and one, it's the totality.
Thank you, sir. Just hold while I do my notes. All right, so for Mr. Shippey, moving to the end of that row, you're good? All right, at this time, we're gonna go ahead and jump to the far back of the room, starting on my right, moving left. Do you have anything, sir?
No.
All right, either of you two gentlemen? All right, come on down.
All right, thanks, please.
All right, starting page 3 of my notes here.
I know you agree.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give this evening is, to the best of your knowledge and ability, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name with spelling, legal address of record for Mr. Angelo.
Donald Downs, D-O-W-N-S, 121 Southwest Cessna Court, Lake City. I'm going to address your thoughts as well as behind me. Okay, just a moment ago, Mr. Shippey mentioned a project that we talked about last month. And not to drag that into your project, but I mean, that one was a piece of property where the actual developer wanted to put 200 or 80 or, the numbers were all over the place, but talking to him personally afterwards, they're really more like 80 units and a couple of rentals and this and that. It seemed as though the people representing them wanted to put 478 possible units, get it zoned for that, which is just scary to me. What's being proposed here for this Hunter property? I mean, quite frankly, compared to the potential with the 22 acres, it is pretty acceptable in my view in comparison. Would I prefer to have Bambi live over there and the gopher turtles and all that stuff? Absolutely. We have deer come wandering through our yard. You start putting all this out there and they're gonna disappear. But when you put the map up, it's not this gentleman's map, it's your map of the development area within the city of Lake City. This is gonna happen. Not necessarily their project, But there's people coming into the area. I mean, I moved out here in 2013, so I'm a relative newcomer. And I mean, if you got stuck waiting for one light on 90 on a Friday afternoon, you know, coming from Jacksonville, that was like a gift from God. And it's changed now. People are moving here. It's going to happen. In my estimation, I'd rather have single-family homes that people own on that piece of property than 500 million rental properties with only God knows what would happen with that. But, to your points, you say, if you said yes to this mess tonight, it's gotta go through a lot of other flaming hoops before it gets there. I would just wanna have the opportunity to be involved with those flaming hoops, because that's when the details are gonna hit the road, we're gonna see what we're really talking about. Because all this talk about Bascom Norris, let's be honest with everybody here. You could put another lane on that whole thing, and then what's gonna happen? It ain't gonna happen near Sisters Welcome, it ain't gonna happen in 47 or whatever, and it's not gonna make it out at 90, and there's nobody who wants to go back to 441, so where's it gonna go? I suggested maybe a cloverleaf with an overpass that goes right to Publix, one goes to Walmart, and the other one goes to 75. Because without that, I don't care what you do, it's gonna be a problem somewhere. But apparently, we've got to trust you to figure it out, because you're gonna put 300 and something more houses out there. They're gonna wanna get to Publix, and then they're gonna put up with it. So I don't know what you're gonna do, but you're gonna have to do something. As far as the water, looking at that map that comes through there, Shippey's Point, sure enough, you put up houses and driveways and roads, you know, you talk about more or less water, there's gonna be more water that doesn't soak into the ground. It's gonna have to go somewhere. We don't want it in our neighborhood. We've had all of your water coming from Home Depot and everywhere else. I'm not gonna get into it. But we gotta trust you to figure it out, because we don't want your water from there. We're in a residential growth area. It's going to happen. I don't understand how you could take 93 acres and have 50 of them be buildable, which turns into having basically about 7 houses on an acre. I don't know where you can put 7 houses on an acre and have garages and driveways and stuff like that. It's like, you know, heard about 10-pound bags and stuff like that. I don't know what you're talking about. But on a positive note to this whole project, I would certainly prefer what's being discussed or considered over low-income housing, Section 8 housing, apartments, or anything like that. Just be careful how you address it. That's all I have.
All right, coming down the back wall, blue shirt, no comments, ma'am. Sir, two-tone colored shirt, come on down. You can give me just a minute to finish my notes from the previous speaker.
Yeah.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give, to the best of your knowledge and ability, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name and address of legal record for Mr. Angelo.
Bill Jennings, Jennings, 310 Southwest Air Park 1, Lake City. Know the area code? Good evening, gentlemen. Of course, this neighborhood that you see has always been a coalition. I'm a recent joiner, just down here 2 years. So when they say developments, by the way, I've seen many developments. I'll give you an example, and this is what always scares me. Cannon Creek does have a big issue with water. I mean, I don't get it usually on my end, but I have a lot of neighbors that have to deal with a lot of water. You think Florida, bragging about their ecology and all that stuff, protecting the animals, would understand what a treasure water is. I'm from northern Indiana. I live near Lake Michigan. As long as you lived above the lake, you didn't have to worry about it. it all went down there. One of the biggest water masses in the United States, by the way. But when you're talking about this area around here, beautiful area, I moved down here for its beauty, one, and to fly. But when people, I'm a mechanical engineer. Purdue University is called civil engineer box of rocks. When they're studying this kind of stuff, it's hard to predict water flow and stuff like that. And I know they're good at it. They got computer models, they're getting better at it. But it's just a concern to me that my neighbors are going to be flooded out. Some of them in the springtime can't get their planes up so well. They've done some moves to help with that, but now we're going to put 300 units with concrete, maybe steel roofs, maybe asphalt roofs, and we're actually being told to trust them. Very good presentation. I made better PowerPoints when I was in there, but you know, that was a very good presentation. Made it a lot clearer to me, and I want people to live down here, because I moved down here because I like Florida. I want people to move down here, but you know, that big of a unit density, to me, scares me with the water flow. That's what I'm talking. I do have some comments. You I have a very good neighbor who lives next to me. She could not be here. So these are mine and her comments. And you said something about legal.
I think as opposed to presenting someone else's comments,
Okay.
I think it would be more advisable, and I think Mr. Angelo will bear me out on this. Please submit those through channels. We'll see that they get added into the project folder.
Okay.
I don't want to put anyone in a position where they're having to swear on someone else's testimony.
Okay. These, I would swear a person. Anyway, she's actually in a hospital taking care of her husband, so that's why she couldn't be here. But we just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the air park has been there as an air park since 1978, and that was done by the Sessions Douglas establishment. So you got to understand the people that live in this area are really dedicated to each other, and they're dedicated to the air park. And for somebody to say, well, it's noisy and neighbors aren't going to complain and not going to close the air park down. There was just one up in New Hampshire that got closed down because the neighborhood the people outside the neighborhood got together and said it's too noisy, we can't take this, and they closed the air park down because of noise. I happen to have one of the noisiest machines in the air park. My neighbors actually make a comment, can you fly a little bit
You
farther?
can't see this right now, but everyone out there is nodding. You have the loudest machine in that park.
It's not mine, it's the doctor's that's sitting with me, so mine's quieter, okay? Again, we stress almost every time we come down here, I hear about the water problem. And, you know, I don't mind other people coming from other counties worrying about our water, but I sure would like to see our county and our city worry about our water, okay? And where it's going. So, everybody told me, well, you gotta watch because you're going to Swanee River down here, but you come from Indiana, you don't understand. I used to be around the Ohio River also, so they're pretty touchy about what goes in the Ohio River now too. So, people complain the danger of the airplanes. I personally had a friend that visited me. She was from Texas. She took off and she landed in the home in the neighborhood next door. When I arrived there, the first thing people complained about, that damn air park, okay? We ought to get that moved, okay? Just saying. They didn't understand that they're actually in a point of the plane takeoff where you can stall. If you get into a situation, you can stall and you're coming back down, there's nothing you can do about it, okay? I think this area is also within the stall. So, National Transportation Board has many times talked about Cannon Creek and they've intervened in it. So, just bringing it up. The air park is totally private. We work on our own roads. We have to pay for it. Introductory price was $2,500 for the road. We got to repay it. That was a piece. So we do our own roads. We take care of our own air park and that stuff like that. I know HOA. They're not going to take care of their roads and that stuff. And it's just kind of suspicious to me that 2 weeks before this came up, the city annexed it. That was pretty slick, I think. Okay. And then we want to know about I was I guess, there was a concern with this one right here about apartments and stuff, but the presentation, but a lot of congratulations on the presentation. That's all. Okay?
All right, thanks, sir. All right, so we're almost coming down to the home stretch from where Mr. Jennings was seated. No comments? Man in the corner? No comments? Orange shirt, come on down. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give this evening, to the best of your knowledge and ability, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name and address of legal record
Carol
for Mr.
Geisler.
Angelo.
GEISLER, 114 Southwest Deanna Terrace, Lake City, Florida. Quite a few bit of what I has been talked about, but a couple of things on the infrastructure that hasn't been. Nobody has talked about Marvin Burnett. Everybody has talked about Bascom Norris, Sisters Welcome. Marvin Burnett comes off of the Y. Now that's a 35-mile-an-hour road. Granted, we know that nobody does that. It's a 2-lane, and the poles run down that road also. So one of the things that has to be looked at is the school is right there on Marvin Burnett when you come off that Y. In the morning, trying to get out of that area with the school, and this is a year-round school. You have to dart, and I have a child that goes to that school. So trying to get over there with the traffic as it already is almost impossible between 7:30 to 8:15 in the course of the afternoon. And then everybody uses that road instead of going to the light on Bascom Norris. The other thing that hasn't been brought up is this is a truck route. This is your alternate truck route if 90 is down and 75 is down. So we have had accidents on 75, they've come up 47, they've come up either Bascom Norris or Marvin Burnett. It is not uncommon when there's an accident on 90, they're coming down Marvin Burnett. So and it's a 2-lane road, so that's a major concern. I want to reiterate, yes, I have the same information that at least 2 of the schools are going to be closing, one this coming year and one the next year, and Melrose is supposed to close the whole year. And from what I heard, it's at least a 2-year project. So that may be or may not be, but I do know that that's happening. Per the Lake City Police Chief's letter, looking at this, not every block is checked, approved, in looking at this project summary. Because what I see is stormwater hasn't approved, Public Works hasn't approved, Police Department has not approved. So I have a concern also with the egress out of this, because you have one main entrance and exit, and you're gonna put 2 emergency exits with bollards. Well, if there is an incident in here, people are gonna be crashing their cars to get out those areas with the bollards, because usually bollards are either made of steel or they're made of concrete. Because that is to keep people from just coming in and out anytime. So there could be a concern of major accidents just for people trying to get out, and of course, people thinking it's an entrance or exit and they're gonna try to come in. One of the things nobody brought up is the lights from the softball field. They will shine directly in that housing area no matter where. So that's another concern, like the one we had last month. Are they gonna shut down the ball fields, at an early hour just because of noise? Because you will have a lot of noise. Games go until after midnight repeatedly on Saturdays and Sundays and Fridays. So you've got that. The high tension poles, of course. School zone, with the school zone there. Granted, they're talking there's a buffer with that one driveway, but that school goes back further. And they also have to maintain that road that's next to the school before you get over to, down a little way. They have to maintain that road. So there is really, I don't see an exit on the back end or the other side other than going into somebody else's property. And then it doesn't really back up just between, on Bascom Norris on Tournaments. That road backs up all the time. Trying to get out anywhere, you're looking at a minimum of me just figuring it out, and I do safety and compliance of, you're gonna have to have one on Marvin Burnett and 47, you're gonna have to be looking at that interchange, and then you're looking at least 3 or 4 lights in that area, just for safety, because road rage right now is astronomical there, and it's gonna get worse. And we could add 300 homes, 50 homes at a time. You're looking at a minimum of at least 1 car to 2, so you could be putting another extra 200 cars, 300 cars when it's all built easy. And with the road rage you're having now, when you have the 300 and some odd, that the road rage is a concern, so that's all I have.
Last but not least,
Every issue's been brought up already,
very nice.
but I concur with a lot of the issues.
Right. All right, so this time, everyone's had an opportunity to speak, some of us multiple times. There be anyone that passed up a chance to speak earlier, does anyone wish to come to the podium? Mish?
You forced me.
I didn't force you, I just asked politely if you'd like to say something.
My name's Tim Murphy. Go ahead, I'm sorry. I'm taking your job from you.
What an honor. You swear the testimony you're about to give to the best of your knowledge and ability is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
Very nice.
Tim Murphy, 283 Southeast Fontana Glen. I heard all the concerns. I was attending the meeting last night with CHW and the other constituents, mostly from the air park. There's a lot of concerns. I'll have to agree with Mr. Downs. I think it's inevitable. Growth is coming with 1 million people a year moving to Florida. It's gonna happen. But as a commissioner that serves pretty much everybody in this room, it's my job to protect the quality of life of what these people are experiencing now and naturally in the future. Our jobs here, starting here, and I'll commend you guys, this is a very well organized meeting, you do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
But with that being said, I think it's all of our elected officials and of course every constituent in Columbia County to have this opportunity to be able to come forth and state your concerns, because if there's anybody in here from Deanna Terrace and south, we all know about the water, and of course it goes on into the air. Since I've been commissioner, we've done some projects over there that could possibly help, and but that's neither here or there. We understand Swanee River's got their regulations and what have you. I concur with the gentleman that was flying in there today. It's a lot of rooftops to see what trees aren't. But all I can tell you is this, is that I'm not here to speak for the county commission. I'm here to speak for Tim Murphy, and I am very, very concerned about what it's going to take to alleviate some of the traffic issues we have, the impacts, and the ball field is not shutting down, I promise you that, regardless of what the northern lights, that ain't gonna happen. But these are all very, very important concerns that we all have, and this is a due diligence process. And I can assure you, again, not speaking for the county or the county staff, we are very concerned, and there's a long road ahead of us here, because there's going to be a lot of, I heard a gentleman say, I think, we will take all information, how we normally operate as a county, we'll bring in information in, and then we're gonna be seeking out independent responses to it. So we'll do our diligence to verify and justify every single action that's taking place. But like the gentleman right there said, I'm like him. Health limitation, game bill, lots of we want that, they can stay that way. Yeah, but I appreciate it, thank you.
All right, is there anyone else that did not get the, go ahead.
Mr.
Swear the testimony that you're about to give is to the best of your knowledge and ability, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Very nice. Name and address?
Stephen Budd, Stephen Budd, BUDD, 150 Southwest Cessna Court, Lake City. So I'll make this very short. I guess I'm the last person to speak. I was alluded to earlier when a couple of people mentioned that when it rains, we have water problems on the air park and people can't move their planes. I'm one of those people. In the past, when it's rained really heavily, I haven't been able to move my plane for weeks. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm saying weeks. Now I've been told that the situation is going to be addressed and there's improvements that are going to be made. I've been told that for 4 years. It's still the same. I've also been told that it became apparent after the Home Depot development. And I'm sure that when that was done, there was a water mitigation plan put in place, but we have water problems. And I just want to emphasize it's really important that the water mitigation problems for this development are addressed, because we certainly don't need any more water problems at Cannon Creek. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else who has not yet had a chance to address the board? All right, seeing none. At this time, there being no further public comment, do we have a motion to close the public comment portion of this petition to allow discussion amongst board members and city staffers and departments?
Motion to close public comment.
Second. Motion to close, the second coming from Sean. With a hand vote, all in favor? Very nice, all opposed? All right, discussion amongst members of the board and city departments. Let's start with Mr. Angelo. The comments that we saw in our packets do show that the city had a chance to weigh in with a attached email. I know one of our commenters said that the police have not yet had a chance to weigh in. Does it give you any heartburn if that gets added into the record, either by you reading it or I reading it?
It will be. You can go ahead and read it.
To whomever made the comment that the police did not get a chance to weigh in on the city staff reports. No, you remain seated.
What I said is they did not approve it. There is an email, but they have not approved it. That's what I said.
Okay, I understand that. Very nice. Anything else that you want to add from your end now that we're in discussion amongst board members and city departments and growth management?
I want to add.
Now's the time, Mr. Steve, you have anything that you would like to bring to our attention as the acting director of growth management?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really what I'd like to do is I don't have a comment so much as I'd like to just bring everybody up to speed on what we've done since the last meeting where one of these projects in the same area was tabled. We have city staff and a few county staff had a very low-level staff meeting where we just introduced information, shared information, and talked about what it would look like. One of the things that was addressed was the traffic, obviously, was one of the very first things. What we were informed of is that, just as Commissioner Murphy said, what would happen there is once this information is provided to the county and it's been shared, and it has been at this point, it would go to a third party for review. So I don't know what their timeline looks like. I would guesstimate 4, 5, 6 weeks, but that is on the table as we speak. They have actually received that information. So,
and these would be assessments done not as self-assessments by the proposer, or I'm sorry, the proponent. These are outside independent third-party analyses.
That's what we were informed, that they would have a third party look at it. The information that they're looking at is the same information that you have, though. I would like to make that point. The second thing is we did talk about utilities. Again, we're early in this. We would have to know the exact capacities to talk about what the upgrades were. We've gave some just hypothetical situations. But the upgrades to utilities has been discussed in-house, as well as the location of the utilities. If all of these developments were to build out, what that would look like in the future. So we are aware of that. We've actually looked into that. If, for example, the road was to be 4-lane, where would those utilities be at that point? Underneath asphalt? Obviously, that's unacceptable. So we're looking at all of these avenues. As far as future plans, we haven't got any further than that though. So just kind of an update on where we were from the last development to this development. Any questions you may have?
All right. So we are still in process of review. You said at the previous meeting, you would recommend, based on the meetings that would obviously need to take place between our county contemporaries, it was recommended and voted by this board to table for 2 months until we could at least know
That is
on the city side and the
correct.
county side what's going on.
That is correct.
Preliminary meetings have been held, and pretty much the decision that was made at the city and the county level was to conduct a independent outside third-party analysis of the transportation issues.
So yeah, just to clarify, the city manager and the county manager were not involved in these meetings. This was a low-level staff meeting. What was talked about was the logistics of how these processes would be moved. So traffic, for example, the county indicated to us as a representative of the county that what they would basically do is once the information was received, they would have a third party look at it additionally to ensure that everybody's concerns have been met.
Okay, and this would be pretty much your counterpart for county growth management director or that ilk?
Correct. It was not out of their growth management department, it was their engineer.
Okay. And the general notion between your department here at the city and his department over there at engineering is we don't know what we're looking at until the transportation analysis comes back.
That's correct.
Utility upgrades, those are still being discussed, but there has not been a utility impact analysis ordered.
Well, the utility issue is twofold because we're looking at all developments. So in this case, for this discussion tonight, we're discussing one development. The utility division with the city, we're looking at holistically what it takes to encompass everything. One of those is obviously what the total impact to all of the utilities would be, whether it be water, sewer, or gas. In the letter that was presented by the city, that's the reason for that letter as a representative, of the city, is we want everybody to know that those are on the table. They are being talked about, but early in the proceedings, we do not have all the answers to those. It has been informed us that upgrades would be a necessity. The upgrades will be required. I believe it has been talked about tonight already. The developer mentioned this sanitary sewer moving towards Sister's Welcome. One of the developments, they talked about it possibly going into a manhole for some gravity. So what we're looking at is not a one-off, we're looking at everything together. But to clarify, as of right now, from the last meeting that we had discussed in this general area, we are pretty much in the same exact spot. We're under review. What we've had is a low-level meeting from the county to the city staff to make sure we are on the same page and sharing information.
All right, I'm sure I probably speak for most, if not all, the members of the board. I have to admit, I was very surprised to see a big development down on Bascom Norris come up, and we had just had one last month. We're talking to the county engineer. I know they operate a separate planning and zoning board from us.
That's correct.
Next month, are we gonna see a third housing development come up on our agenda? What are we looking at? What are we walking into next month? If we table this for 1 or 2 months, are we coming in next month and seeing a third one?
So as of right now in growth management, we're looking at 2 developments that have actually submitted either conceptuals or in this case, a more design plan.
And that's for in-city limits. that the county engineer with County of Columbia indicate, oh yeah, by the way, we've got this one and this one that are just down the street.
Yeah, so what we have heard, and again, I wanna make sure I make that very clear, we do not have a
Preliminary talks, I
document
get it.
in front of. But we have heard of talk of, them wanting to develop that area right now is a very hot topic. Again, that is one of the reasons why the city is moving very slowly through this and making sure that we make the right choices whenever we do. We don't wanna have any knee-jerk reactions. We wanna make sure that when we design a sewer line or a water line or a natural gas line, that it will meet the needs of the whole area. And that's one of the things as they were talking about that takes so long to do this, that's what we're trying to make sure. And then the other component, as you mentioned, and everybody else in the room has, is the traffic component. We have to work with our counterparts at the county and make sure that whenever we make the decision for the location of the water, the location of the sewer, that it meets the needs of the upgrade of the possible traffic on that road. So there's a lot of moving parts to this one.
Will there be anything, I have to admit, I'm ignorant of the county land development regulations as it pertains to all this, we just focus on city issues. Or once you get out of the city into county property, like Mr. Murphy was talking about, are there any additional hydrology issues we're gonna have to deal with other than compliance with Suwannee River Water Management District issues? Are there county-specific hydrology concerns that the engineer brought up to you when you had your discussions?
So I haven't had that conversation with the county, and I do not want to speak for them.
Okay.
But knowing historically the area, as you've been explained very clearly tonight, I wouldn't, I would think you would have to see it, but again, I haven't had that conversation with the county.
Mr. Angelo, is there anything additional beyond city over on the county side that you've heard of, aside from compliance with Suwannee River Water Management District and state DEP regs as it pertains to water and runoff?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
Any other questions, comments for our still acting, or been thrown into it full time?
Obviously, the proposed project last month and this month, while in a similar area, there's some pretty significant differences. And then clearly it sounds like there's other places nearby that may also be developed in or out of the city. Is there a, because your opinion was very helpful last month, just an opinion. Both last month's project and this project here are gonna be, what they're coming for us for is extremely early in their process. There's a long time before putting shovels in the dirt. Is there any sort of value in these projects getting through this first process in order to speed up something actually happening as far as preparing this area for development that we all assume to be somewhat inevitable?
So I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. We do feel that the area will develop at some point in time, that the development will come, they will check all the procedural boxes eventually. What we're trying to do as a governmental agency is ensure that the citizens minimize and absolutely have no impact to their existing properties and all the surroundings, as well as we look at what it looks like to build out for future growth in that area. Obviously, being in the growth management department, it would be very hypocritical if I said we don't want to grow this. But at the same time, we don't want any negative or adverse impact to anybody in the area. So I hope I answered your question correctly. Yeah, we do see, as Commissioner Murphy said, the area in a whole, the state of Florida is just growing. They're not producing any more real estate, but we're having more people move here. So I think this is going to be the new norm. The thing I can't explain right off is just why this particular area become a hotspot so fast. We had one that was kind of lingering along. We've heard about the prior development for a while. We heard a little bit about some areas behind the Social Security office, but again, not to get too far lost in the weeds, this was one of the first ones where they put pen to paper and actually brought in a set of plans, some traffic information. It's just that once it got here, the two kind of compounded, and that's when the city wanted to step back and again, I cannot reiterate this enough, to make sure that our county counterpart has a fair place at the table so it doesn't look like we're getting the cart ahead of the horse, so that we're putting everything that we can in place to ensure that any decision made will be, for everybody.
Last month, I feel like your recommendation definitely moved all of us towards the feeling of caution. Would you recommend the same thing now?
I would recommend that the county have a fair chance to acknowledge the roadway and the infrastructure. I think at this point, it has been brought to everybody's attention, not just from the constituent level, but from the governmental agencies together combined. It is clearly on everybody's radar. It is clearly one of those major impacts to the area. Everybody's got to come and go out of that area. So as far as if you're asking me would I recommend to table it, I would say I would recommend to give everybody a chance to have a fair say before we move too far.
Very delicate phrasing.
What's the possibility of an overpass? We talk about the traffic. What's the possibility of an overpass in that area?
I would rather not speak to that, Ms. McCollum, because I am not an expert in that area. I really wouldn't be able to steer you in the right direction. I do know that now, as far as what we've talked about now, is it has been thrown out there, but the county has not come to us and said that they're willing to 4-lane that road. That has not happened. But it has been talked about if the area development continued to grow, that may be something that we could look at, which in turn led into the utility question of locations of utilities. So that has been on the table from the city side.
I think you have diligent planning, like turn into, I think there could be, you have diligent planning that could possibly turn into an emergency. Between the city and the county, do they have 5 and 10-year growth plans? Anything like that?
I have not looked at their growth plan, but I do know that the city and the county are continually looking at what it would look to develop urban areas. It's just, again, as part of the city of Lake City's not getting any bigger, so the growth is gonna have to happen in the county.
People are moving in, and I imagine that Bascom Norris is in its infancy, could become a formal bypass, just like 295 in Jacksonville. It could be a small city bypass. So it seems like 4-laning, the whole thing should be in somebody's future planning.
We have talked about it. I just don't want to get too far ahead of that and somebody misunderstand that I said that was on the table, because the county has not said that. I do not want to speak for the county.
I envision 100 to 200 years or even less, Lake City and Live Oak coming together, and it being a solid city down US 90 West. Now, I think that's going to come.
I'm gonna go on record saying I'm not gonna be on the board when that happens.
And that's what we're
Yeah.
Here now.
But for his 4-lane in Bascom Norris, that should be, even if it's in its infancy, that should be on somebody's planning concern.
And that's what we're looking at from the utility side. We are looking at the placement of those utilities and what we would upgrade. The cost of those utilities is going to be quite expensive. So we are obviously looking at what that would look like.
Just to make a shock statement, with this program here where he's talking about building this new neighborhood, just think of about 700 more cars to park and 700 more cars to come in and the ingress off of Bascom Norris. 700 more vehicles. That's kind of scary.
Well, and to put it into perspective, Mr. Nelson, that's why we're saying let's make sure we look at everything. Let's make sure we talk about everything. As a representative of the city, that's what we're doing. And again, we're trying to make sure that the county has got plenty of time to do theirs. I don't want to speak for the county, but they did say that a third party would look at their traffic study. So in doing so, the time needed to do that, I think, we want to make sure that all those questions are answered.
And lastly, don't be late.
Don't be late.
Yes, sir.
Anything down here?
I have some questions for the petitioner.
Pardon me?
I have some questions for the petitioner.
Oh, for the petitioner. All right, Steve, I think you're good. Thank you.
Thanks.
He's a big guy, but I could hear through that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a good guy too.
Hey, can you comment on the lot sizes or the unit per acre? It seems to be like a concern of several of the homeowners.
Sure.
Just briefly, what 7 units per acre, what does that look like? And are you including 7 units? Is that the townhomes per acre? Or what do the lot sizes look like, 50 by 100 or?
Generally, we have 2 lot sizes, 40s and 50s that are in there. I was gonna comment on the dwelling units per acre. The number that's presented at like a 6 to 7 unit per acre, that's if you take the total number of homes and only divide it over the developable land. The overall density is going to be less than 4 units per acre, so it's lower than the requested land use that allows up to 4. That number can only be derived if you just look at the net developable area. And of course, the roads are obviously included in that too, so you lose between 10 to 12% of the developable area for land. That's why the lot sizes are smaller. Quite frankly, the reason that there are smaller lots is because it is getting more and more expensive in the state of Florida to provide housing, especially housing for sale. And so when Adams Homes was looking at this and through Garden Street Communities, they were looking specifically at the market and trying to produce a product that could be sold and absorbed well over a multi-phased project.
There's a lot of background noise and another question I had, which way does the water naturally flow? I know that the air park is on the other side of your development. And a lot of the wetlands is on this side of your development. So does the water naturally run away from the air park and into the wetlands with your development? Or does it bypass the wetlands and go into the air park?
So do we have a topo map in the back pocket? If your IT staff could put up the presentation, there's a topographic map that I can show you all.
Yeah, because that was a concern that they had, that they would get more water in their air park, and they don't want another Home Depot situation where they did the
I heard that one was
studies.
clear. Yes, sir. That's why they built the ditch.
This one or the other one?
Probably slide 22 or 23.
So you had a study done for, like a preliminary study where, like water mitigation, like where it ran and what it will do and all that crap?
At this point, during a large-scale land use amendment rezoning, we don't really do much more than just looking at soil types.
Sure.
Percolation that should be associated, whether those are grade A, B, C, D, or below soils, and do generalized planning. If you go further toward the end, perhaps.
That would be part of the next phase of the.
Yes, sir.
of
Yeah,
the
I was gonna
plan.
say that will get done though, correct?
Yes, it will get done.
Okay.
Yep. So this is a great map to show you. This is what we call our environmental map, and this shows you the topographic lines here. So you can see here where I'm tracing with the laser. This is the 175-foot contour, and these are in 5-foot intervals. So there's the 170, and it goes up and around that area that has FEMA 100-year floodplain, as well as permanently flooded and saturated wetland areas here. And you can see here, coming downhill, this would be 165, 160. So going through the site, the water direction is going downhill, and water travels perpendicular to contours, so that directionality is going through this wetland here, which I don't know why it wasn't mapped, because it clearly looks like a wetland from vegetative analysis here. And then down here is 155, 150, 145, 140. So you see this valley that's created by these triangular shapes. This water is traveling from northwest to southeast and then there are larger floodplain areas here, so
So where's
this is
the
all
water-
downhill, sir.
Where does that end up? Does that end up anywhere near their property?
Oh, absolutely,
Straight to it.
yeah.
Behind it, right?
This is a high portion of, the southwest portion of the city here, and it's lower, and all these areas here, this proposed subdivision here is 170, 165. So the direction of water travel in the area, in the context area, is from northeast to southwest. So as I stated, we will model this, and our basins, one of our basins will be located right here to ensure that post-development runoff does not exceed pre-development. So we have to measure the flow that naturally goes through here, because that naturally hydrates these areas.
Right.
We have to make sure that that is maintained, but we can't increase the volume of water. We can't throw our runoff onto that. And whatever's coming to the site, we have to capture and detain. So when you saw the map with the A and Bs on it, you notice that the B area is gigantic in this area. Because it encompasses not only these wetland areas here, but it encompasses all these areas up here so that we can detain water on site and not let it leave the site and go, off property.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Did you say ponding basin down in that lower corner? Did you say a ponding basin down in that lower corner to catch the water? That's all forest now, right?
Yes, we have
So you got
multiple
clear forest.
basins that are programmed here.
We're not gonna have
here,
discussions from the crowd.
And that's done to protect off-site properties.
Did he satisfactorily answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. I would like to say that I like roundabouts for traffic flow. I think roundabouts are also.
We're not opening that can of worms this evening, Mr. Cooper.
I'm just saying, I'm a proponent of roundabouts.
There you go.
Mr. Sean, you got anything?
Well, I think great presentation, and I really listened to all the comments, so we had very good comments. It seems to me that what we're being voted on tonight is a request to sort of consolidate the zoning. I didn't realize there was a commercial lot there with the potential for a shopping center or who knows what, strip mall. So I think it's a difficult choice, but I like the consolidation of the zoning, and I like the fact that it's residential moderate, it's not high, it's not a super high density apartment complex, for example, that it is moderate, which is consistent with some of the other areas around there. And then the other thing we're voting on is the planned residential, which I think it's the consolidation of 3 of the zonings, county, city, down to 1. I think that has merit as well. This thing's gotta go to 2 city council meetings, all kinds of extra studies. I think we need to simplify the zoning, put it under our bailiwick, as my dad used to say, and then we can really hash out some of these issues, but a lot of good information. So I like the consolidation of these zoning types into the single, easier, cleaner zone.
Any further discussion?
I agree. It has to be zoned something in the city now, right?
I do want to kind of go over the timing of if the board approves the zoning and all that tonight, and kind of the way the timeline works, because this is a large-scale development, and that the future land use has to get transmitted to the state of Florida to be reviewed also. That process takes about 30 to 45 days. While that is happening, the PRD rezoning kind of sits idle until the next, until it's ready to go to city council in May. And so the comprehensive plan, if it got approved, could go to the state of Florida, that gets reviewed by them, comes back, then goes to city council, and the PRD then would sit idle until that one gets back and approved by the state of Florida, then they both would go to city council together.
And as far as the outside independent analysis for traffic being conducted between city and county partners, am I correct in assuming that that analysis will also take into account effects that we asked to be looked into for the for last month's petition that was tabled also.
I
Or
don't know
Are we
that.
going to be waiting on two independent traffic analyses?
CHW just accounted for their development.
Okay. The discussion among board members, Carter, you were saying something?
Oh, well, I was just finishing up the thought that, with the recent annexation, it now requires a city designation. Correct?
Within 1 year, yes.
Within 1 year.
All right, well, hearing no other discussion from members of the board, at this time, do we have a motion? Oh, wait, let me get my notes here. P and Z, okay. At this time, do we have a motion to either approve, disapprove, or table either or both of CPA 23-01 and or Z 23-01 as presented by agent for proponent?
I'd like to vote to move to approve CPA 23-01 and Z 23-01.
So both.
Motion to approve both. Do we have a second to approve both?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Angelo, will you please call the yeas and the nays?
Ms. McCollum?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
And Mr. Lydic?
Nay. All right, that was a non-unanimous vote, but it does appear that CPA 23-01 and Z 23-01 will be moving forward to City Council. Congratulations. Pardon me?
May I make one small comment?
At this point, you're approved. Are you sure you want to dig that hole deeper?
No, I wanted to thank you all for your attention this evening. I wanted to thank you for a very, very well-run advisory board meeting to the city commission. Your staff is outstanding. I met Robert and he said, I want to be an AICP planner one day, and he has been the utmost of a civil individual to supply Seth and myself with information. When I heard what happened with the Tennis Forever application, he was kind enough to not give that engineer my information, but ask permission. And so I said, absolutely. I have been in communication with her. I know the engineer who is doing their traffic study. And so as soon as that's done, we're going to get it in our office and continue to work with good folks like Robert and Steve, because they do have the community's best interest, and you should be really thankful for having great staff. Hopefully that's not a whole Doug. That's just
you're
some
good.
praise where praise is due.
I'm just looking at a clock that's ticking away, my friend.
Okay.
All right, at this time, there is no further business under new business in front of planning and zoning. There's no workshop items to be addressed. We have a motion to adjourn planning and zoning.
Motion to adjourn planning and zoning.
Motion, where'd my second come from? Oh, Ms. Mary? Hand vote, all in favor of adjournment? Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you everyone for attending. Let me grab my other agenda. We're gonna start the meeting. Please take your conversations outside. We have 2 meeting agendas that we have to make our way through.
I'm gonna have my.
In other words,
If you have conversations, please take them outside the room so that we can gavel in the Board of Adjustment meeting. Yes.
Yes, it's part of our counties. I am.
This mic is hot, be careful.
Oh, okay. Well, I lived in, you know, where my house.
We all have the same community.
Right there.
You guys look good, I went down 16th Street.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your help tonight.
You're welcome, sir. You have a good day.
I was one of the council members.
That's a good thing you didn't have anything to do.
For Broward County, Amy Shields, Lori Alcoa.
Probably see you at the
I've known her for.
You what?
Okay, I'll see you there. Appreciate it.
For those of you that stayed, thank you so
They
much.
just saved us today $100,000.
Yeah, we have a mint for you as a, yes, yes, please
You're here
do.
for 975 Jaguar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes.
Let's get to it.
Waiting on a couple
Well, we gotta wait till.
board members to come back in.
I do want a quorum present.
Yeah.
It makes it easier.
What did you know for state?
Yeah, we can get to it, but we won't get approved.
Appreciate your patience.
Yeah. That guy. That was a good presentation. Your mic's on.
I still don't know if I'm supposed to pause the thing in between because they're technically the same thing, so it is still running.
It's fun. Same thing.
I made more time.
You know,
About that.
if it wasn't the same board, I think that this next board's feelings out there, how little impact here's what I was doing that.
We're still recording. Hey, your mic's on.
Oh. All right, and there's the last of our quorum. For those of you watching at home, we are coming out of our break.
Why did you know anything going on?
You missed burger night at the Elks.
Such a thing would never happen.
That'd make me mad too. No burger.
When I got a wife at home with pneumonia, that's what I'm itching to get home to.
Good. I'll pray for it.
I don't have it, I just came back from a reenactment down in Monroe County. All right, seeing a quorum is present at this time, I'm gonna call into session the Board of Adjustment, City of Lake City, February 7th, 2023. Roll call will remain the same. Electronically, we've had distributed to us meeting minutes from the last time the BOA met, which would have been on 1st November 2022. It's been a little bit since we've gotten them together to do Board of Adjustment activities. I trust everyone's had a chance to review said minutes, and at this time, do we have any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes as electronically submitted?
Nope.
At this time, seeing none, do we have a motion for their adoption?
Motion to adopt the minutes from 11/1/2022.
Second.
Motion Carter said, was that Cooper or Sean down there? Okay, Mr. Cooper. Show of hands for adoption of minutes, aye.
Aye.
Hands down, like sign opposed. All right, we got some minutes, let's get started. There being no old business, we move directly to new business. Petition B22-03. Petition submitted by Brittany Dunn, agent for Rob Stewart, owner, for a variance at 975 Southwest Jaguar Drive in a residential single-family zoning district located on Columbia County parcel 08028-107, regulated by Land Development Regulations, City of Lake City, Section 4.5. Mr. Angelo?
Alright, this petition is V 22-03. It is for a variance for the setback on the property. Currently in this subdivision, the setbacks are right at 20 feet. And there is a wet area to the back of the property, so they can move the home to the front. And that the property to the east of this development is at a 10-foot setback, and they're requesting an 11-foot setback, so it'd be consistent in the area.
All right. Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
All right, come on down. You swear that the testimony you're about to give, to the best of your knowledge and ability, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very nice. Name and address for Mr. Angelo.
Robert Stewart, 426 Southwest Commerce Drive, Lake City, Florida, 32025. And I'm here to request a variance in the setbacks for this lot 7. It's currently at 20 foot, and I'd like it to be 11 feet. That allows me to set the house off the wetlands and the flood zone in the back of the property. And it is consistent with the house immediately to the right of it, which is currently at a 10-foot setback.
All right. Anything for the proponent from members of the board?
Would you have to get flood insurance if this wasn't approved?
Yes.
Anything else? No. All right, seeing none, you may be seated.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else here in attendance that would like to speak either for or against petition V 22-03? All right, seeing none. Motion to close the public comment portion of this petition.
Motion closed.
Second.
Motion to close, and Mr. Carter with the second. Hand sign, all in favor? All right, hands down, like sign. All right, public comment on this portion of this, or on this petition is closed. Discussion amongst members of the board, basic housekeeping, save some flood insurance. All right, seeing no further discussion, do we have a motion to either approve or disapprove petition V 22-03 as submitted by Mr. Stewart, owner?
Motion to approve petition V 22-03.
Carter?
Second.
I think it's might be out under the wire. Let's call that a Nelson second. All right, Mr. Angelo, will you please call the yeas and the nays?
Ms. McCollum?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
And Mr. Leidy.
Yay. All right, it is unanimous. Petition V 22-03 has passed. Congratulations, and thank you for sitting through such a long meeting to hear your variance heard.
Thank you very much, and this board moves a lot quicker than the previous board.
It does.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Congratulations. At this time, we have no workshop questions to discuss. Therefore, with no new business, no workshop, we have a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustment.
So moved to adjourn.
Second. Your pick. All right, we have a motion and a second, by hand sign.
Aye.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hands down. Opposed likewise. Seeing none, we are adjourned on Board of Adjustment. Let us move now to Historic Preservation Agency, City of Lake City, February 7th, 2023. I find it comedic that we are starting at 6 p.m., given that it is almost 8:30 at this time. Roll call shall remain the same. Electronically, you are distributed meeting minutes copies from January 4th, 2023. I trust everyone had the opportunity to review said minutes. At this time, are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes as presented?
No.
Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion for their adoption?
Motion to approve meeting minutes 1/4/23.
I'll second.
Carter and McMahon, there was no question about that. No one got in under the wire. All right. By hand sign, all in favor?
Aye.
Hands down. Likewise opposed? Very good. We have meeting minutes unanimously approved for 1/4/2023. There is no old business on the agenda, there is no new business on the agenda other than the approval of a consent agenda consisting of 7 certificates of appropriateness for projects taking place in our 2 historic districts. Mr. Angelo, would you like to come down, give us a brief rundown of these 10 projects? And we'll try to keep up with them on our pads and then vote to ratify.
All right. So COA 23-04 is for 322 Southeast Camp Street. They are looking to repaint the building with the same color, which would be consistent with the LDR 10.11.5.24, and also replacing the existing awnings with ones of the same color, which will also be consistent with the LDR 10.11.4.4.
Very nice, next.
Next one is for COA 23-05 for 178 Southeast Hernando Ave. They are looking to replace the existing dark shingles with a charcoal shingle, so real similar in color.
And this has already taken place, hasn't it?
Correct.
Okay. All right, next.
Next one is for COA 23-06, and this is for 254 Southeast Brown Street. And that they are looking to replace the existing dark shingles, gray shingles with a charcoal shingle also.
And it is of some note that this is a non-conforming structure within the historic district. It is bounded on multiple sides by historic, but in and of itself is modern construction. Please continue.
Next one is COA 23-07, which is also at 178 Southeast Hernando Ave. They are looking to remove an unhealthy tree on the south side of the building. Had a big old cavern in the side of it, and they did provide a note from an arborist showing that that tree was unhealthy.
What is the size requirements where you need a permit or permission to remove a tree?
Anything over 4 inches if it's facing the road where it's visible from the road to the public.
Within a historic district.
Correct.
Now, for the rest of the city at large, there is actually a City of Lake City tree ordinance that I believe would supersede anything we have at the HPA level as far as what's required, what species need to be protected at what size, diameter, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
That is right, it does supersede our internals, right?
Yeah, because it's stricter than the HPA.
All right, next.
So the next one is COA 23-08. That one is for 428 Northwest Columbia Ave. And they are looking to replace 9 more of the windows on the structure with similar to the existing ones and also match the previous 9 that were installed in 2021.
This was one of the ones that we saw while we were all still in Microsoft Teams or Zoom land, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Those were interesting times. All right, very nice. Next.
Next one is 199 Southeast Baya Drive, and it is for COA 23-09. They are looking to pour a concrete in place of the dirt driveway. If you look at the property directly to the north of it, it already has a concrete drive there, so it's consistent with the neighborhood.
Very nice.
Next one is COA 23-10. That one is for 175 Northwest Washington Street. And they are looking to apply a DuraShield silicone roof coating to the existing Galvalume metal roof. And it will have a similar color to the Galvalume that's up there now. But if you look at the pictures in the packet, it's kind of a multicolor roof right now. It'll all be one consistent Galvalume look.
Are you familiar with that product?
I'm not real familiar with it.
The project cost was $33,000
I don't know on that, but I know it's expensive.
to prep and paint the roof.
Mm-hmm.
They're not replacing, they're just painting.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
That's a pretty big warehouse.
Yeah, it's the biggest Dive Right facility.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, materials are expensive.
Get a cemetery.
Yes.
All right, I remind everyone that for the purposes of a consent agenda, we merely need to vote to ratify unless there are certain questions or comments for city departments about why something may have ended up on a consent agenda instead of going to the floor in its entirety. This time I have no comments. Does anyone have anything they would like to add prior to making a motion that we ratify all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consent agenda items as presented by Growth Management?
I'm just glad to see these old homes and properties being renovated and taken care of. It's really gratifying.
I'm happy we have a consent agenda process and don't have to go through 7
Every
petitions
single
tonight.
one of them, right?
Thank God, especially.
After what we've
it's
been through.
8:30.
All right, do we have a motion to ratify?
Motion ratified.
Second. Motion and a second. Let's let him get back to his notes. That's
For
gonna be
the
a Cooper
consent-
Carter.
The consent agenda. The whole shebang, the whole enchilada.
All set now, yes. All right, after you write down the motion and the second, will you please call the yeas and the nays?
Yes. Mr. McCollum?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yay.
Mr. Romaine?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
And Mr. Lyman?
Yay. There's no further business before this board and no workshop questions tonight. We have a motion to adjourn our third and final board and head back to the haciendas.
Move to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Second. Man, Cooper, there we go.
There we go.
Jumped in on the right flank.
All right.
All right, show of hands, who wants to get out of here? Show of hands, who wants to stay? All right, let's get out of here.
Can't wait till next month.